What if Harry Potter didn't just become an Animagus, but became a full dragon forged in Mount Doom itself? Voldemort split his soul into Horcruxes thinking no wizard could destroy them all, but he never planned for Harry to swallow them like cursed snacks and burn them from the inside. In this 7-chapter story, Harry becomes the only creature powerful enough to end Voldemort forever, but every breath of dragonfire costs him a piece of himself. So grab your butterbeer, hide your gold, and let's begin. What if Harry was a dragon animagus? And if you enjoy dark, epic Harry Potter what-if stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because this dragon is cooking Voldemort extra crispy today.
Chapter 1, The Cracks of Doom. What if Harry was a dragon animagus? The last thing Harry Potter remembered of Hogwarts was not the castle falling. It was the sound. Stone did not scream when it broke, but Hogwarts almost did. Towers cracked open under curses that should never have touched them. Windows burst into silver dust. Staircases twisted out of place like wounded limbs. The great hall, which had once held floating candles and Christmas songs, and the smell of roast potatoes, burned with green fire. Voldemort stood where the teacher's table had been, not as a man, as a victory. Around him, Death Eaters filled the hall in black waves. Some laughed, some bowed, some only stared because even they seemed afraid of what they had helped create. The air was thick with smoke, dust, and the terrible silence that came after too many people stopped fighting. Dumbledore was dead. Not missing. Not hidden. Dead. Snape had vanished somewhere in the chaos, leaving behind only rumors and blood on the marble floor. McGonagall had dragged what remained of the Order into retreat. Ron and Hermione had been torn away from Harry by a collapsing corridor near the 7th floor, and Harry had not seen them since. And Voldemort had taken Hogwarts. Harry had run because there was nothing else left to do. That fact hurt worse than any curse. He had not run alone. In one hand, he clutched the Elder Wand, stolen from the tomb because Dumbledore's last plan had broken apart before anyone could understand it. Around his neck hung the locket Horcrux, cold as winter and heavy as guilt. In his scar, the other fragment burned like a trapped coal. 3 impossible pieces of magic, a wand older than legend, a soul shard that hated him, a second soul shard that whispered from silver and green. And when Harry stumbled into the corridor outside the headmaster's office, the air itself split open. It did not look like a door. It looked like the world had been cut. A black tear opened in front of him, rimmed with pale light, its edges trembling like torn cloth. Behind it was not another hallway, not another room, not anywhere in Hogwarts. Harry saw ash, red sky, a mountain breathing smoke. The locket grew so cold it burned his chest. The Elder Wand shook in his hand. His scar exploded with pain. Harry heard Voldemort's voice behind him, distant but approaching, calm and amused. Harry Potter. Harry did not think. He stepped through the tear. The world vanished. For one endless second, he fell through nothing. There was no floor, no sky, no air, only pressure. The kind that pressed into his bones and squeezed his thoughts flat. The Elder Wand flashed white in his fist. The locket screamed against his chest. His scar felt as if a hook had been driven through it and pulled from the other side. Then the nothing spat him out. Harry hit black stone and rolled. Heat struck him first, not normal heat. Not summer heat, not fire heat. This was deeper, older. A heat that had lived under the skin of the world since before people gave names to stars. He lay gasping on a slope of dark rock. Above him, the sky was red, not sunset red, wound red. Smoke rolled across it in slow, enormous rivers. Ash drifted like dirty snow. Far above, lightning flickered inside the clouds without thunder. The air tasted of iron, sulfur, and endings. Harry pushed himself onto one elbow. Before him rose a mountain. Its sides were black and jagged, split with glowing cracks. Fire pulsed deep inside those wounds. At its summit, smoke poured upward in a pillar that seemed to hold the sky apart, Mount Doom. Harry did not know the name yet, but some part of him understood the meaning. This was not a place where evil lived. This was a place where evil could end. The locket around his neck gave a tiny metallic twitch, like something trying to crawl away. Harry laughed once weakly, then coughed ash. "Scared now?" he whispered. The locket went still. He tried to stand. His knees nearly failed. Every bone in his body felt bruised. The Elder Wand was still in his grip, though he had no memory of keeping hold of it. His glasses were cracked. Blood ran warm from his scar down the side of his face. Behind him, the tear in the air snapped shut. The sound was soft, almost polite. Harry stared at the empty space where it had been. "No," he said. The wind took the word. He turned in a full circle, wand raised. There was no Hogwarts, no corridor, no Ron, no Hermione, no way back, only ash, only rock, only the mountain. Then a voice spoke from behind him. "You have come very far from home, Harry Potter." Harry spun, wand up. A man stood on the black slope as though he had been there for hours. He was tall, clothed in white that should have been stained by ash but somehow was not. His beard fell over his chest like silver smoke. In one hand he held a staff. His eyes were ancient, bright, and unbearably sad. Harry's first thought was Dumbledore. His second was no. Dumbledore had always looked like a man pretending the world could still be funny. This man looked like the world had already ended once, and he had been forced to continue walking through the ruins. Harry tightened his grip on the Elder Wand. "Who are you?" The man looked at the wand first, then at the locket, then at Harry's scar. His face changed, not with fear, with grief. "I am called Gandalf," he said softly, "and I know the smell of a soul bound where it should not be." Harry's mouth went dry. The locket pulsed against his chest. Gandalf took one step forward. Harry raised the wand higher. "Don't." Gandalf stopped at once. "I will not take it from you. Everyone says things like that right before they try." A faint, tired smile touched Gandalf's face. "Then you have been among dangerous friends." Harry wanted to laugh, but it would have come out wrong. Instead he said, "Where am I?" "At the foot of Orodruin," Gandalf replied. "The Mountain of Fire. In a land that has known rings, wars, dark lords, and the terrible patience of evil." Harry swallowed. "Another world." "Yes." The answer should have broken him. It did not. There was no space left in him to break. Harry lowered the wand by an inch, not because he trusted Gandalf, but because his arm was shaking too badly to keep it raised. "I need to get back." Gandalf's eyes moved toward the place where the tear had closed. "Yes," he said, "I think you do." Something in the way he said it made Harry's stomach twist. Gandalf came closer now, slowly, like a man approaching a wounded animal. He did not reach for Harry. He did not touch him. He only studied the locket. "That thing around your neck," Gandalf said. "It is not unlike a ring I once knew, not the same craft, not the same maker, but the same cowardice." Harry's fingers went to the chain. "It's a Horcrux." Gandalf's face darkened. "A word from your world. A piece of soul." Harry said, "Voldemort split his soul and hid the pieces so he couldn't die." Gandalf closed his eyes. For a moment the mountain rumbled beneath them, as if the name had irritated the stone. "When the wicked fear death," Gandalf said, "they do not become immortal. They only teach death new shapes." Harry stared at him. He hated how much that sounded true. "There are more," Harry said. 6, maybe, 7 counting." He stopped. His hand rose to his scar. Gandalf opened his eyes again, "Counting the one in you." Harry did not ask how he knew. The old wizard's voice had no triumph in it. "Only mourning." "Yes," Harry said. The locket whispered coldly under his fingers. Gandalf looked toward the mountain. "Then you have walked into the one place where such things might be ended." Harry looked up. "Mount Doom can destroy them?" "The fire within that mountain unmade a power that ruled an age," Gandalf said. "It was not merely heat, it was origin, a fire that remembered the making of a terrible thing." Harry's heart began to beat faster. "Then I can throw this in." He grabbed the locket chain, but Gandalf's staff struck the stone between them with a crack like lightning. Harry froze. Gandalf had not moved like an old man. His eyes flashed. "One, perhaps," Gandalf said. "Not all." Harry's hand tightened around the locket. "What do you mean?" "I mean your enemy is not foolish in the way you need him to be. If you destroy one anchor, he will feel it. He will rage. He will guard the others. And if he has the skill you say he has, he may bind another before the hunt is done." Harry's breath stopped. "He can make more. If he has time." Gandalf said. If he has murder, if he has fear enough to feed him. Harry looked away. He saw Voldemort in the great hall. He saw green fire. He saw bodies on stone. He has all three. Yes, the word was gentle. That made it worse. Harry's knees gave out. He sat hard on the black rock, the Elder Wand loose in his hand. For a while neither of them spoke. Ash fell between them. Finally Harry said, "Then what was the point?" Gandalf did not answer quickly. He looked toward the mountain as though asking permission from the fire itself. "The point," he said at last, "is that 7 anchors cannot be hunted as 7. They must be gathered as 1. Harry looked at him. "That's impossible." "Yes." Gandalf's eyes returned to him. "That is why you are here." Before Harry could answer, another voice spoke from the rocks above. "Not impossible. Only foolish." A short, broad figure came down the slope with the certainty of someone who trusted stone more than people. He wore dark mail beneath a heavy cloak. His beard was iron-gray and braided with small pieces of metal. Across his back hung a hammer, but his hands were empty. Harry knew at once he was not human. The figure stopped beside Gandalf and examined Harry from boots to scar. "So this is the boy." Harry's temper sparked. "I'm sitting right here." "I can see that," the dwarf said. "You are smaller than expected." "Everyone keeps saying that." "Then perhaps everyone has eyes." Gandalf sighed. "Harry Potter, this is Thorin Stonehelm of Erebor." Harry blinked. "Thorin," the dwarf's expression hardened. "Not the one you are thinking of. If any old songs have crossed into your world, I am of his line. Last enough for the task, if not last enough for pride." "I don't know any songs," Harry said. "Good. Songs exaggerate." Thorin Stonehelm crouched in front of him. His eyes were sharp, practical, and not kind enough to lie. Gandalf nodded toward him. "Thorin understands furnaces better than I do." "I understand what survives them," Thorin corrected. "And what doesn't?" He pointed at the locket. "That thing is not metal first. It is hunger first, metal second. The fire below may unmake it, but the old man is right. One by one your enemy will outrun you." Harry's throat felt tight. "So what do I do?" Thorin's gaze flicked to Gandalf. Gandalf looked suddenly older. The white around him seemed less like light and more like snow on a grave. "There is another way," Gandalf said. Harry waited. Gandalf did not continue. That frightened Harry more than the mountain. "What way?" Thorin stood. "Dragon fire." Harry almost laughed. "You have dragons?" "Had," Thorin said. "Enough of them." Gandalf's voice was quiet. "Ordinary dragonfire would not do, not for this. But fire born from this mountain, carried in a living furnace, shaped by a soul that already contains one of the anchors." Harry slowly rose to his feet. No one had said it yet. He understood anyway. Gandalf's eyes filled with sorrow. "I would not ask this of you if there were any gentler road." "No," Harry said again. The locket began to whisper, soft and eager. "Boy, beast, monster, alone." Harry grabbed it so hard the metal bit into his palm. Gandalf took one step closer. "You would not become a common beast. Not a dragon trapped by greed alone. You would become a forged worm, a shape made for one purpose, to gather the anchors into yourself and burn them together with fire no wizard has prepared against." Harry shook his head. "I'm not an Animagus." "No," Gandalf said. "Not yet. I can't even do proper transfiguration without a wand half the time." Thorin snorted. "This is not schoolwork." Harry rounded on him. "You think that helps?" "No," Thorin said. "I think truth helps. Comfort rarely does." The mountain groaned. Deep inside it, fire shifted. Harry looked up at the summit. The locket was colder than ice now. His scar burned hotter than ever. "Will I be able to change back?" Gandalf did not answer fast enough. Harry's heart sank. "Tell me." "You may return to human form," Gandalf said, "for a time. But the shape will not be a cloak you wear and remove without cost. Dragons are not merely bodies. They are hungers with wings." Thorin lifted one thick finger. "5 laws, boy. Hear them or die stupid." "Thorin," Gandalf warned. "No," Harry said. "Let him." The dwarf nodded once. "First, your hide will turn steel and spell, but not everywhere. Eyes, throat, wing membranes, the soft flesh under the jaw, inside the mouth, inside the gullet. Every beast has a door where death may enter." Harry remembered stories of dragons. He remembered one word from somewhere old and dusty. Smaug. Thorin's face went still. "Yes," he said. "Smaug died because one place was bare. Remember that before you think yourself a god." Harry nodded slowly. "Second," Thorin continued, "your fire will be limited. The mountain can seat a furnace in you, but it cannot make you endless. You will have enough true fire for the anchors that remain. No more. Waste a breath and your world pays for it." Harry looked at the locket. "How many?" Gandalf answered. "The shard in your scar will burn during the forging itself. It is already inside the fire that must be made. After that, 6 true breaths." "6," Harry repeated. The number settled into him like a sentence. "Third," Thorin said. "Time in the beast shape will eat at the boy shape. At first you lose small things. Names, tastes, the sound of a friend's laugh. Stay too long and you forget why you began." Harry's stomach turned. Gandalf looked away. "Fourth," Thorin said, "dragons hoard not because they are rich, because possession becomes breath to them. The soul anchors will call to that hunger. The longer you carry them, the more you will want to keep them." The locket pulsed. Harry felt it. A tiny, shameful instinct. Mine. He let go of the metal as if burned. "And fifth?" Harry asked. Gandalf answered this one. "In dragon form you cannot cast magic. No wand, no spells, no charms, no shield but your body. You trade the hand for the throat, the wand for wings." Harry looked at the elder wand in his hand, the most powerful wand in the world, a thing men had killed for. A thing Voldemort had built his final dream around, and apparently useless for what actually had to be done. Harry laughed under his breath. It sounded too close to crying. "Brilliant." Gandalf's voice lowered. "You may refuse." Harry looked at him sharply. "What?" "You may refuse," Gandalf repeated. "Choice is not a decoration, Harry Potter. If you are forced into this, then your enemy has already won something from us." Harry stared at him. Behind his eyes, Hogwarts burned. Ron's hand slipped from his in a collapsing corridor. Hermione screamed his name through falling dust. The great hall turned green. Voldemort smiled. Harry whispered, "If I refuse—" "Then we seek another path," Gandalf said. "There isn't one." "No," Gandalf said. "I do not think there is." The honesty hit harder than hope would have. Harry looked at the mountain. It was ugly, terrible, alive with fire, and yet for the first time since Hogwarts fell, he could see the shape of an ending. Not a happy one, not a fair one, but an ending. He thought of Dumbledore, of plans wrapped in riddles, of adults who gave him pieces and called it protection. Gandalf had given him the whole blade and told him where it would cut. That mattered. Harry lifted the Elder Wand. For a moment, it shone in the red light. Then he held it out to Gandalf. "I won't need this." Gandalf did not take it. "No, keep it until the last moment. Let no other hand claim it while you are still a man." Still a man. The words landed quietly. Harry swallowed. His hand rose again to his scar. "What happens to him? The piece inside me?" Gandalf's face became very still. "It will burn first." "Will it hurt?" Thorin looked at him as if the question was childish, then did not answer. Gandalf did. "Yes." Harry nodded. He had expected that. "Will I survive?" Gandalf's eyes shone with pity. "I do not know what survival will mean after this." The wind moved across the slope. Ash brushed Harry's face like cold fingers. He looked down at himself, thin hands, torn robes, muddy trainers. A boy's body that had carried too many prophecies, too many curses, too many people's plans. He had never wanted power, not really. He had wanted a bedroom door that opened kindly. He had wanted letters from friends. He had wanted Quidditch, treacle tart, lazy afternoons by the lake, Hermione correcting his essays, Ron stealing his chips, Hagrid waving from the edge of the forest. He had wanted to go home. But home had been taken, and if Voldemort had his way, there would be no home left for anyone. Harry turned to Gandalf. "What do I have to do?" Gandalf looked as though the question aged him another century. "The mountain will open to the soul shard in you. Thorin will guide the forging. I will hold your mind to its name for as long as I can." "My name?" "Yes," Gandalf said. "That will be the first thing the fire tries to take." Harry nodded again. His mouth was dry. He wanted to say many things. Too many. Words crowded his throat, all useless. Tell Ron I'm sorry. Tell Hermione she was right. Tell Ginny no, if he started he would not stop. So Harry Potter, standing at the foot of a mountain in a world that was not his own, spoke his last human sentence. Tell Ron and Hermione I was trying to get back to them." Gandalf bowed his head. "I will." Harry believed him. That was enough. They climbed. The path into Orodruin was not a path so much as a wound in the mountain. Heat rolled out in waves. The air grew heavier with every step. Harry's sweat dried almost as soon as it formed. His scar burned so fiercely that the world blurred at the edges. Thorin walked ahead, sure-footed on the black stone. He muttered under his breath not spells, but measurements. Angles, heat, stone pressure, the language of making. Gandalf walked behind Harry, not guiding, guarding. The locket twisted on its chain. Harry heard voices from it now, not clear ones, not full sentences, just feelings wearing familiar tones. Ron's hurt, Hermione's fear, Dumbledore's disappointment, Voldemort's amusement, boy, beast, monster, alone. Harry gritted his teeth. The tunnel opened suddenly into a chamber above a river of fire. The cracks of doom, even the name seemed too small. A stone bridge reached toward a ledge over molten light. Fire moved below like liquid gold and blood. The heat had weight. It pressed against Harry's lungs and made each breath feel borrowed. The Elder Wand trembled in his hand. The locket screamed without sound. His scar split open. Harry dropped to one knee. Gandalf's staff struck the stone. "Harry James Potter," he said, voice ringing against the chamber walls. "Hold to your name." Harry tried. Harry James Potter. The scar burned. The Horcrux inside him woke fully. For one horrible instant, Voldemort was there, not in front of him, in him. A cold, furious presence clawing at his thoughts, shrieking not words but refusal. It had hidden in him for years. Fed through him. Survived through him. Now it felt the fire. Harry smiled through his pain. For the first time, the thing in his scar was afraid. Thorin moved to the edge of the ledge and drew a short blade. Its metal was pale and strange, shining like moonlight trapped in steel. "Mithril," he said. "Not to cut flesh, to mark the pattern." He carved into the black stone with impossible precision. Lines formed around Harry, a circle. Then 7 marks. One flared and cracked apart the moment it was made. Gandalf saw it. "The scar shard," he said. Thorin nodded. "One burns in the lighting. 6 remain for the furnace." The math mattered. Harry clung to it. 6 breaths, 6 anchors, no waste. Gandalf began to speak, not in Latin, not in any spell language Harry knew. The words were older, deeper, and they did not command the fire. They asked it to remember. The mountain answered. The chamber shook. Harry screamed. The sound barely seemed human. His bones lengthened, not all at once. That would have been kinder. They pulled apart with terrible patience, each one becoming something too large for the body that held it. His shoulders cracked wide. His spine arched. His fingers bent, fused, and split into talons. Heat poured down his throat and settled behind his ribs like a second heart made of flame. His skin hardened, then tore, then hardened again. Scales pushed through him, black as obsidian, edged with bright veins of mithril that glimmered beneath the surface like trapped lightning. His jaw stretched. His teeth grew long and curved. His lungs expanded until each breath dragged fire over the walls of his chest. The scar on his forehead opened, not like a wound, like a seam. A thin black smoke poured from it, twisting into the shape of something small, furious, and broken. The Horcrux fragment tried to flee. The mountain took it. Fire rose. The soul shard burned without flame at first, collapsing inward, folding into itself as if being crushed by the weight of every life Voldemort had stolen to make it. Then it shrieked, and the sound cut through Harry's mind. Years of pain went with it. The cupboard, the snake voice, the flashes of Voldemort's anger, the cold presence behind his thoughts, all of it caught, all of it burned. Harry felt something tear-free inside him. For one breath, he was only himself. Then the dragon opened its eyes. The chamber was too small. Stone cracked around him. His body kept growing. Wings burst from his back, vast and dark, their membranes streaked with red firelight. His tail lashed against the wall and shattered rock. Talons dug into the bridge. The Elder Wand slipped from what had once been his hand and clattered onto the stone, tiny now, meaningless. Gandalf stood below him, white robes whipping in the furnace wind. Thorin stared upward, face lit by awe despite himself. Harry tried to speak. Only smoke came out. His thoughts moved strangely, too large, too bright, too hungry. He remembered his name because Gandalf was still saying it. Harry James Potter. The dragon lowered its enormous head. The old wizard did not step back. His eyes were wet. "It is done," Gandalf whispered. Harry understood the words, barely. He also understood the locket still hung around him, its chain stretched and transformed with the magic, now caught between the armored plates of his chest like a silver insect. He could smell it, not metal, soul, fear, mine, whispered something deep in him. No, Harry held the thought, not mine. Not keep, burn, the fire in his throat pulsed. 6, he knew it without being told. There were 6 true breaths inside him, not 7, not endless. 6. Each one a death sentence for a piece of Voldemort's soul, each one a piece of Harry's future spent. The dragon turned toward the mouth of the chamber. The tunnel leading out seemed impossibly small. Then the mountain cracked wider, making room. Orodruin had forged many terrible things. Now it released one. Harry crawled out of the fire mountain and into the red dawn of Mordor. When he emerged onto the slope, the world fell silent. He was nearly 200 feet from horn to tail, black-scaled and veined with mithril light. His wings unfolded against the burning sky, vast enough to shadow the rocks below. His eyes glowed molten gold. He looked like something from the oldest nightmare of wizards. He felt like a boy trying not to forget 2 names. Ron, Hermione. The dragon lifted its head. Far away, beyond ash, beyond sea, beyond the torn places between worlds, Voldemort had hidden 6 pieces of himself and believed no single curse could reach them all. He had defended against wands, against love, against death. But he had never defended against hunger. Harry spread his wings. The first beat shattered stone. The second lifted him from the mountain. The third carried him into the sky. Below, Gandalf watched him rise with the face of a man attending a funeral before the body had died. Thorin Stonehelm stood beside him, silent for once. High above Mordor, Harry Potter turned toward the wound between worlds. The boy had entered the mountain carrying a curse. The dragon left it carrying a furnace, and somewhere inside that furnace 6 breaths waited. 6 Horcruxes remained. Chapter 2. The first hunt. What if Harry was a dragon animagus? The sky did not know what to do with him. Harry Potter rose out of Mordor on wings large enough to make the ash clouds bend. For the first few moments, he did not fly, he fought the air. His body knew things his mind did not. Muscles along his back tightened and released with terrifying strength. His wings caught the wind, dipped too far, corrected, then caught again. His tail swung behind him like a living rudder, smashing through a ridge of black stone when he turned too sharply. The dragon understood balance. Harry did not. That difference nearly killed him twice before he cleared the mountain. Below, Orodruin fell away in a red-black wound. The cracks of doom glowed like an eye watching him leave. Far beneath him, 2 tiny figures stood on the slope. One white, one iron-gray, Gandalf, Thorin. The names came slowly. Harry clung to them because they proved he could still think in words. The dragon preferred simpler things: heat, wind, height, hunger. Mine, the last thought came with the locket. It was still caught against the armored plates of his chest, its silver chain stretched and reforged by the mountain's magic. It was no longer around his human neck, because he no longer had a human neck. It hung beneath the ridge of his throat like a trapped star, cold and hateful against the furnace inside him. Harry could smell it. That was the worst part. As a boy, he had felt Horcruxes as wrongness, as fear, as pressure behind the eyes. As a dragon, he smelled them. The locket smelled of old blood, wet stone, and a crown buried in a grave. It was not pleasant, it was not beautiful, but it pulled at him, not to destroy, to keep. Harry beat his wings hard, and the world lurched beneath him. No, the thought was not loud enough. The dragon's instincts rolled over it like thunder. Keep. Harry forced himself to remember Gandalf's voice. 6 true breaths. No waste. He remembered Thorin's rough warning, dragon's horde. The locket twitched. Harry opened his jaws. A thread of smoke slipped between his teeth. The furnace in his throat wanted to answer, wanted to pour itself over the thing he carried, wanted to spend one breath now and be rid of the cold whisper forever. But the math rose in him like a wall. 6 breaths. 6 anchors. Not this one, not yet. Harry closed his mouth until his teeth clicked together like falling gates. The fire sank back into his chest. For now, he turned west, or tried to. The body turned wider than he expected. His left wing dipped. The land spun. For one terrifying second, he fell sideways through a column of ash cloud, blind and roaring, claws scraping sparks from a cliff face. Then instinct caught him. His wings snapped open. Wind slammed beneath them. Harry shot upward. The dragon enjoyed that. The boy was sick with fear. Far ahead, the sky had changed. A tear hung over the horizon. It was not the same narrow wound that had swallowed Harry from Hogwarts. This one was wider now, strained open by the violence that had created it. Through it, he saw a flash of gray ocean, green hills, and a cooler sky. Britain, home. The word hurt. He flew toward it. The distance should have been impossible. Mountains, ash plains, dead lands, sea, all of it passed beneath him like scenery in a dream. The rules of both worlds had been damaged by the tear. Middle-earth blurred into Britain at the edges, as if the sky had folded and forgotten to unfold properly. Harry crossed over dark water. For a while there was only cloud beneath him. Cloud and wind. The wind was a language, not words, directions, temperatures, warnings. It told him where the sea rose, where rain waited, where birds fled. It curled along the mithril veins in his scales and sang against his horns. He understood it more easily than he liked. After perhaps an hour, perhaps 3, he saw the British coast. Cliffs rose from the sea in pale teeth. Waves broke white below. The sun was sinking, staining the water orange and purple. In another life, Harry might have thought it beautiful. The dragon saw perches, hunting ground, places to land, places to burn. Harry clenched his mind around the first human thing he could find. Ron's laugh. Hermione's voice correcting him. Hogwarts staircases. Quidditch pitch grass after rain. The memories came, but not cleanly. They were wrapped in smoke. He could still reach them, but each one felt farther away than it had in the mountain. How long had he been in this form? He tried to count. The dragon did not care about hours. Harry did. The hourglass of scales. Gandalf had said it without saying it. Thorin had said it plainly. Time in the beast shape burned through the boy. Harry needed to be quick. First target, the diadem, Ravenclaw's lost diadem, hidden in the room of requirement. Still inside Hogwarts. Still inside the castle Voldemort now used as a throne. Harry turned north. The flight over Britain was silent at first. Then the world noticed him. Far below, lights winked out in towns and villages. Cars swerved on dark roads. Sheep scattered like spilled salt across hillsides. Somewhere near the edge of a city, sirens began to wail. Harry flew higher. He did not want muggles to see him. Too late. A 200-foot dragon with obsidian scales and molten gold eyes was not the sort of thing a person politely failed to notice. By the time he reached Scotland, night had fallen. Clouds gathered around him. Rain hissed against his scales and became steam. The cold air sharpened his thoughts, and the land below grew familiar in cruel pieces. The shape of mountains, the black line of forest, the lake. And then Hogwarts. Harry's wings faltered. The castle stood under a bruise-colored sky, but it was no longer the place he knew. The towers remained, though several had been broken and rebuilt with dark stone that did not match the old walls. Green fire burned in iron bowls along the battlements. Dementors drifted like torn cloaks above the courtyards. The Quidditch pitch had been flattened into a camp. Dark shapes moved between tents and siege engines. The Forbidden Forest crawled with patrols. Voldemort had not merely captured Hogwarts, he had occupied it. Harry circled above the clouds, unseen for the moment. The dragon wanted to dive. The boy held back. The diadem was inside the room of requirement. 7th floor, hidden among mountains of broken things. Harry knew where it had been in another timeline of thought, another version of the hunt that had never happened properly because everything had gone wrong. But could he fit? No. Could he burn the castle? Yes. Should he? No. The diadem had to enter his gullet. The forge fire had to meet the soul anchor inside him. Burning Hogwarts from outside might destroy stone, students, prisoners, memories, but not necessarily the Horcrux. No wasted breath. No blind fire. He needed the diadem. The dragon offered a simpler answer. Tear, dig, crush. Harry refused. Then he saw the patrol. 6 Death Eaters moved along the edge of the forbidden forest, their wand lights thin and nervous. They were not laughing. That told Harry something. They had heard rumors. A shadow over Wales, a black shape over the sea, something large enough to blot out stars. Harry folded his wings. He fell. The air screamed around him. For 1 second he was only speed. Cloud tore apart. Rain exploded off his scales. The ground rushed up, dark and silver and green. The Death Eaters looked up too late. One shouted, one fired. A red curse struck Harry's chest and shattered into sparks. Another spell splashed against the side of his neck and ran harmlessly over obsidian scale. Harry hit the ground in front of them hard enough to throw all 6 off their feet. Trees cracked backward in a ring. Mud blasted outward. The forest fell silent. The Death Eater stared. Harry lowered his head. His jaws were longer than a carriage. His eyes burned brighter than their wand tips. One of them whispered, "Merlin." Another ran. The dragon liked that. Harry did not. He moved anyway, not with cruelty. Not exactly. With terrible efficiency, his tail swept 2 Death Eaters aside and slammed them into a tree hard enough to end the fight. A third fired a killing curse straight at his face. Green light struck the ridge above Harry's eye and burst apart, leaving only a smoking mark across the scale. For half a heartbeat, Harry felt relief. Then pain tore through his left wing. He roared, not from fear, from surprise. An enchanted crossbow bolted punched through the soft membrane near the lower edge of the wing. Not deep enough to cripple him, but enough. Blood fell hot and black-red onto the grass. The Death Eater holding the crossbow stared in stunned triumph. Harry stared back. Thorin's voice returned. "Every beast has a door where death may enter." The mithril lie. His scales could turn curses. His wing could bleed. The Death Eater tried to reload. Harry's head snapped forward. There was no clean way to make it gentle. He took the man into his jaws, not to feed, to know. The instinct came from somewhere older than human magic. Dragons did not only hoard gold, they hoarded secrets, names, maps, fears. Flesh carried memory. Terror loosened it. The moment Harry swallowed, the man's last thoughts broke open inside him like sparks in dark water. Hogwarts, 7th floor. Room sealed. Carrow Patrol, the Dark Lord's order. No one enters the hidden room, not even for treasure. Especially not for treasure. The diadem was still there. Harry staggered back. The memories were not his. They tasted wrong. He saw the Death Eater's childhood kitchen. A mother's hand. A first wand. A first curse. A face cheering when Voldemort entered the Great Hall. Fear of punishment. Fear of failure. Fear of the dragon. Then all of it was gone. Harry stood in the crushed mud, smoke curling from his nostrils. The remaining Death Eaters were silent. One dropped his wand. "Please," he said. It was small. Banal, not a speech. Not defiance. Just a man who had chosen cruelty for years and discovered too late that fear did not care about politics. Harry looked at him. The dragon wanted to finish the hunt. The boy thought of mercy. Then an alarm bell began ringing from the castle. The Death Eater had used the word please, but his hand was moving toward a silver whistle at his throat. Harry's tail struck the ground between them. The man froze. Harry turned away. He did not have time. He opened his wings. Pain flashed through the left membrane. He nearly collapsed. Not invincible, not invincible. Good. He needed to remember that. Harry launched himself toward Hogwarts. Behind him, the surviving Death Eaters ran into the trees. Let them. Fear would carry the story faster than fire. The castle defenses woke. Green lights rose from the battlements. Alarm bells screamed. Dementors lifted into the air like a flock of nightmares. Somewhere below, a voice magnified by magic shouted orders. Harry climbed, then dove. He did not aim for the front gates. He aimed for the roof above the 7th floor. The first volley hit him halfway down. Red, purple, green, silver. Curses burst against his armored chest and shoulders. Some stung. most shattered. A killing curse struck the side of his jaw and sprayed green sparks across the sky. Harry roared, more from anger than pain, and the sound cracked windows across the west tower. Then came the arrows, not ordinary arrows, enchanted bolts from ballistae mounted on the astronomy tower and the broken remains of the owlery. One glanced off his shoulder. One shattered against a horn. One sliced along the soft underside of his jaw where the scales thinned. Pain flashed white. Harry pulled his head in too late. Blood fell across the castle roof. A cheer rose from the battlements. Then Harry hit. The roof above the seventh-floor corridor collapsed beneath his claws. Stone exploded inward, dust and screams filled the corridor. Harry's foreclaws punched through ancient beams. His body was too large, impossible, wedged half in and half out of the castle like a nightmare trying to force itself into a memory. The castle groaned. Hogwarts knew him. He felt that with a sudden, painful certainty. The stones did not welcome the dragon, but they remembered the boy. For a moment the corridor shifted beneath him. Walls moved. Space stretched. A familiar magic, wounded but alive, bent around his impossible body. The room of requirement appeared. Not as a door, as an opening, Harry dragged himself forward, tearing through stone, careful despite the chaos. Careful because beneath him were classrooms, staircases, places where students might still be imprisoned or hiding. He could not simply crush everything. Curses struck his sides from below. He ignored them. His head entered the room. The space beyond was vast, larger than it had any right to be, mountains of broken furniture, cracked mirrors, old books, rusted armor, forgotten experiments, cursed objects, chipped statues, and lost school things rose like hills beneath a dark ceiling. The dragon's eyes adjusted instantly. Treasure. The thought struck so hard it nearly drowned him. Not gold objects, thousands upon thousands of abandoned things, all of them ownerless, all of them waiting. The dragon inhaled dust, leather, old magic, silver, brass, ink, secrets, mine. Harry's claws dug into the floor. No, but the hoard sang, a cracked chess set, a jeweled dagger, a box of coins, a broken crown, a silver mask, books full of hidden spells, a glass eye that watched him, a golden cup that was not the cup, a necklace, a ring, 1,000 glittering useless things. Keep. The locket against his chest pulsed in agreement. Harry's vision narrowed. For one dangerous second, he forgot why he had come. Then he saw it, on the head of a dusty stone bust, a tarnished diadem, small, delicate, almost disappointing. But inside it, something curled and rotten hissed at him. Harry remembered Luna's voice. Wit beyond measure is man's greatest treasure. He remembered Hermione's certainty. He remembered the number. 6 breaths. 6 anchors, this one first. Harry reached with one talon, but the claw was too large. It crushed half the mound beneath the bust and sent objects sliding in a glittering avalanche. Voices shouted behind him. Death Eaters were entering the broken corridor. Harry opened his jaws carefully. The diadem tried to pull away, not physically, magically. It tugged at the room, at memory, at lost things. It wanted to vanish into clutter, to become one treasure among thousands, to hide forever in the dragon's favorite place. Harry understood then why Voldemort had chosen this room, a hidden object inside a hidden room, a secret inside a hoard. Perfect protection against men, terrible protection against a dragon. Harry's tongue curled around the diadem. It was cold, so cold that frost spread across his inner mouth. His throat convulsed. The dragon did not want to burn it. The dragon wanted to hold it behind the heart, near the furnace among the other precious things. Mine. Harry closed his eyes. Ron, Hermione, 6 breaths, he swallowed. The diadem slid down into his gullet. For one terrible moment, Voldemort's soul was inside the dragon. The Horcrux screamed. Harry reared back, smashing through the upper wall of the room of requirement. Death Eaters scattered below. The castle shook around him. Now, the furnace opened. This was not ordinary flame. Dragonfire would have been red and gold, hot enough to melt stone. This was deeper. White at the center, black at the edges, veined with the same ancient red that pulsed beneath Mount Doom. It did not pour from his mouth. It turned inward. Harry breathed into himself. The pain was beyond anything human. The inside of his throat became a volcano. His gullet burned with origin fire. The diadem shrieked as the flame wrapped around it, not melting metal first, but tearing meaning apart. Pride, murder, memory, arrogance, fear, all of it caught. Ravenclaw's diadem cracked. The soul piece inside it tried to flee into Harry. The furnace ate it. A sound like a woman screaming and a snake dying tore through the room. Then the diadem became ash. Harry's body convulsed. Smoke blasted from his jaws and nostrils. For 3 seconds, he could not see. When his sight returned, the room of requirement was burning, not with forge fire, but with ordinary flames started by the heat of his body and the broken lamps below. Harry shoved backward, ripping himself free of the castle before the fire could spread too far. He climbed into the night with half the 7th-floor roof collapsing behind him. Below, Hogwarts roared with alarms. Above, clouds opened. Harry beat his wounded wing. Pain lanced through him. He nearly fell onto the courtyard, corrected at the last second, and took 3 curses across his belly. They shattered, but one struck a thinner seam near the hind leg and left a burning line. Not invincible. Remember, he flew north, not far. He could not go far. The first true breath had been spent. 5 remained. The number appeared in him with absolute certainty, not a guess. A law. 5. 5 Horcruxes. 5 fires. The locket, still against his chest, seemed quieter now, not afraid, interested. Harry hated that. He flew until Hogwarts became a dark shape behind the hills. Only then did he descend into the Scottish Highlands. He found a valley hidden between steep slopes and landed badly, skidding across wet grass and stone. His left wing folded wrong. Pain exploded through the membrane. He roared into the rain, and sheep scattered somewhere in the distance. The rain was cold. Good. Cold helped him think. He had been dragon for how long? The flight from Mordor, the coast, the hunt, Hogwarts, the escape. 8 hours, 9, his thoughts felt stretched at the edges. He needed to change back. Harry reached for the human shape. Nothing happened. Panic rose. The dragon did not understand panic. It understood threat. It lifted its head, searching the valley for enemies. No, human, back, boy, Harry Potter. The name came slower this time. Harry James Potter. He clung to it. His body resisted. The dragon did not want to become small. Small was vulnerable. Small had soft skin, weak teeth, breakable bones. Small could not fly. Small could not keep treasure safe. Small had friends. That thought did it. The transformation back began. It was worse than becoming the dragon. The forging had been fire and expansion. This was collapse. Bones shortened with wet cracks. Wings folded inward and vanished into agony. Scales sank beneath skin like knives being pulled backward. His jaw snapped smaller. Teeth shrank. His lungs compressed, and the furnace behind his ribs dimmed until only a coal remained. Harry hit the ground on human hands and knees. Rain soaked him instantly. He vomited ash, then blood, then more ash. For nearly an hour he could do nothing but shake in the wet grass, one hand clawing at the earth, the other pressed against his throat as if trying to hold himself together. The locket lay beside him now, returned to its normal chain, dark and silent. Harry stared at it through rain-blurred glasses. He wanted to kick it away. He also wanted to pick it up and never let anyone touch it. That scared him enough to move. He dragged himself backward until his spine hit a rock. His robes were torn beyond repair. His skin was streaked with soot. His left shoulder burned where the wing wound had translated into human pain, though there was no wing now, only a long red line across the shoulder blade. His jaw ached. His throat felt scraped raw from the inside. He tried to speak. Only a rasp came out. He swallowed, tried again. Harry. The name sounded strange, like a word in a language he had learned years ago and not practiced enough. He forced himself to continue. Ron. Easy. Hermione. Still easy. The relief nearly made him cry. Ginny. A pause. Then the name came. Good. McGonagall. Harder. Albus Dumbledore. The name tasted like smoke and lemon drops and grief. Harry let out a shaking breath, then he tried another. Hermione Jean Granger. Silence. Rain fell. Harry frowned. Hermione. He knew her face. Bushy hair. brown eyes, ink on fingers, voice sharp when afraid, voice sharper when right. Hermione, the middle name would not come. It was there. It had to be there. He had heard it. He knew he had heard it. His chest tightened. "Jean," he whispered. No, that sounded wrong. Was it right? He did not know. Harry pressed both hands over his face. The dragon had taken something small, not her. Not really, just a detail. A tiny, useless, human detail, and somehow that made it worse. He tried the Gryffindor common room password next. Nothing. His mind gave him the fat lady. A portrait hole. Ron whispering something ridiculous. Hermione rolling her eyes, but the word was gone. Harry laughed once. It broke halfway through. He sat in the rain while the Highlands watched in silence. Far to the south, Hogwarts burned in small controlled fires where he had torn through its roof. Somewhere inside the castle, Voldemort would be hearing the news. A dragon had entered his fortress. A Horcrux had died, and Harry Potter had not used a wand. Harry looked at the elder wand lying beside him. It had returned with him somehow, blackened at the tip, as though it had passed through the transformation folded into the magic around him. He picked it up with trembling fingers. It felt light, almost silly. In dragon form, he could not cast. In human form, he could barely stand. That was the trade, wand or wings, boy or beast, no compromise. He looked at the locket again, still one of them, still waiting. Harry forced himself to reach for it. His fingers closed around the cold metal. For a moment he felt it answer. Mine. Harry's hand shook. No, he whispered. The word scraped his throat. He put the chain back around his neck, not because he wanted it. Because the hunt was not finished. The diadem was gone. 5 Horcruxes remained. Harry leaned his head back against the rock and closed his eyes. He tried to remember Hermione's middle name until dawn. Chapter 3, The Council Beneath 2 Skies. What if Harry was a dragon Animagus? The safe house had no name. That was the point of it. It stood alone on a moor where the wind moved like a living thing, bending the heather in long dark waves and carrying the smell of rain across the hills. From a distance, it looked abandoned. A low stone cottage with a collapsed shed, a broken fence, and windows so dirty they reflected nothing. Up close, it still looked abandoned, only the wards told the truth. They clung to the land in layers. Muggle-repelling charms, notice-me-not knots, anti-apparition fields. A Fidelius-adjacent veil that did not hide the house so much as convince the mind it had already looked there and found nothing worth remembering. Hermione Granger had built half of them. Minerva McGonagall had reinforced the rest. None of them felt strong enough. Inside the cottage, the last pieces of the Order of the Phoenix lived like people waiting for the roof to fall. The rooms were too small for the number of survivors crammed inside. Sleeping rolls lined the floor. Cauldrons steamed in corners. Maps covered the walls, marked with red ink, black pins, and little moving notes that updated whenever someone managed to send news through the broken resistance network. Hogwarts was marked with a circle of black thread. London had 3 red pins. Diagon Alley had none. No one liked talking about why. Ron Weasley sat at the kitchen table, elbows planted on either side of a chipped mug, staring at a plate of food he had not touched. Across from him, Neville Longbottom slept sitting upright with his wand still in his hand. His face was bruised. One eye was swollen nearly shut. Even asleep, he looked ready to stand. Kingsley Shacklebolt leaned near the back door, speaking in a low voice with 2 surviving Aurors. His robes were torn at the hem. His voice was calm in the way a cracked wall was calm because it had not fallen yet. McGonagall stood by the largest map. She had not sat down in 6 hours. Hermione knew because she had counted. Counting was easier than feeling. Numbers stayed where they were placed. Numbers did not disappear into collapsing corridors. Numbers did not scream your name once and then vanish behind falling stone. Hermione sat at the far end of the room with 3 books open in front of her, though none of them had answers. One was about magical beasts. One was about ancient fire. One was about possession. The last one made Ron look away every time he saw the title. Hermione did not look away. She had stopped allowing herself that luxury. On the table beside her lay a small pile of ash sealed inside a glass vial. It had fallen from the sky 2 nights ago. Not ordinary ash, not wood, not stone, not paper, Horcrux residue. She knew it before the tests finished. She knew it the moment the glass fogged from the inside and a whisper in Parseltongue crawled across the surface before vanishing. Harry was alive. Harry had destroyed Ravenclaw's diadem, and Harry was the dragon. No one else had said it aloud. The rumors had arrived first. A black shape over the northern coast, a winged monster crossing the moon, a dragon tearing into Hogwarts through the 7th-floor roof. A Death Eater patrol found broken at the edge of the Forbidden Forest, 3 alive and 2 terrified to speak properly. A Horcrux scream heard across the castle, Voldemort furious. The diadem gone. McGonagall had wanted proof. Kingsley had wanted strategy. Ron had wanted to leave immediately. Hermione had said no. She had hated herself for it. But she had said no because the numbers said no. A rescue attempt without knowing what Harry had become would only get them killed and waste the only advantage they had. Ron had not shouted at her. That was worse. He had only stared as if she had suddenly begun speaking Death Eater logic in her own voice. Now he sat at the table, untouched food in front of him, jaw clenched tight enough to hurt. Hermione looked at him, then at the vial, then back at the map. 5, she whispered, Ron's head lifted. What? Hermione realized she had spoken aloud. She took the vial between 2 fingers. 5 Horcruxes remain. Ron's face tightened. Don't do that. Do what? Say it like you're doing homework. Hermione's hand closed around the vial. For a second, something inside her cracked. Then she pushed it back into place. Homework usually has better instructions. Ron looked away first. That almost made her apologize. Almost. Before she could, the ward screamed. Every wand in the room came up. Neville woke so fast his chair fell backward. Kingsley moved to the door. McGonagall spun from the map, her tartan dressing gown snapping like a battle flag. The cottage went silent. Outside, the moor wind stopped. That was what frightened Hermione most. The wind simply stopped. The wards did not break. They bowed. A white light unfolded beyond the dirty window. Not spell light, something older. McGonagall's mouth thinned. Everyone behind me. No one moved behind her. They were the order. What was left of it? They formed a line instead. The door opened by itself. A man in white stood outside. He was tall, bearded, and bright in a way that hurt to look at directly. Not glowing exactly. More like the world had remembered where to place light around him. Behind him stood others. A man with dark hair streaked by travel and grief, wearing a sword at his side like it was not an ornament but a responsibility. A fair-haired elf with eyes like winter stars. A dwarf with an axe over one shoulder and the expression of someone already disappointed by the ceiling height. A quieter man in worn green and gray, watchful and sad, with the bearing of a soldier who had learned to distrust glory. For one long moment, no one spoke. Then the dwarf looked at the cottage and grunted. Small. The elf glanced at him. So are most doorways to you. Ron blinked. Neville whispered, What? McGonagall raised her wand. Identify yourselves. The white wizard bowed his head. I am Gandalf. I come through the wound between worlds following Harry Potter. The name struck the room like a curse and a prayer at once. Ron stepped forward. Where is he? Gandalf looked at him. The sadness in his face answered before his mouth did. Alive. Ron's shoulders dropped with relief so fierce it looked painful. Then Gandalf finished, changed. No one lowered their wands. Hermione did slowly. McGonagall noticed. Hermione's throat tightened. It is him, Professor. Ron turned on her. You knew. I suspected. You knew. I had evidence. That's not different. It is if you want to stay alive long enough to help him. The words cracked across the room. Ron flinched. Hermione hated that too. Gandalf watched them both with quiet sorrow. McGonagall's wand remained steady. You will come inside, she said, slowly. If any of you reach for a weapon, I will assume you are enemies. The dark-haired man gave a tired half-smile. Madam, if we had come as enemies, I suspect the door would not have opened. McGonagall's stare sharpened. And if I had wanted commentary, I would have invited a portrait. The dwarf barked a laugh. The man bowed slightly. Aragorn, son of Arathorn. McGonagall's expression did not soften. Titles can wait. Harry cannot. That earned Aragorn's respect. Hermione saw it happen in his eyes. They entered. The cottage seemed to bend around them, not magically, but socially. Every person inside understood within seconds that the room now contained history from somewhere else. The elf moved like a song no one had heard before. The dwarf looked at the beams as though planning how to reinforce them. Faramir stood near the wall and immediately studied the maps. Gandalf came to the table. His eyes found the vial of ash. He did not touch it. "The diadem," Hermione said. "Yes. You were there when it began." "At the forging," Gandalf replied. Ron made a sound like someone had stepped on his chest. "The what?" Gandalf looked toward him. "There are things I must tell you plainly. They will not be kind." McGonagall gestured to the table. "Then begin." They gathered beneath two skies. That was how Hermione thought of it later. One sky belonged to Britain, visible through the small, dirty windows. Gray, wet, familiar, bruised by war. The other belonged to the strangers. It entered with them in their clothing, their speech, their silence. A sky of old wars, lost kingdoms and mountains that made monsters into legends. On the table between both worlds lay the map. Hogwarts, Gringotts, Malfoy Manor, Little Hangleton. The known and suspected Horcrux sites. Gandalf spoke first. He told them of the tear in the veil, of Harry's arrival at the foot of the Fire Mountain, of the locket, of the soul shard in his scar, of the need to gather Voldemort's anchors and burn them not one by one across months, but in a sequence tight enough that Voldemort could not replace what he lost. He did not make Harry sound heroic. That was what made it terrible. He made Harry sound chosen, yes, but not by prophecy, by geometry, by need, by the shape of Voldemort's mistake. McGonagall sat down halfway through. No one commented. Ron stood behind his chair with both hands gripping the back of it. Hermione listened without blinking. When Gandalf described the transformation, his voice changed. It became softer, rougher at the edges. The shard in his scar burned as the furnace was kindled. That cost him no breath. It was inside the making itself. Hermione nodded once, then he had 6 after the transformation. Gandalf looked at her. "Yes." "And one was used on the diadem." "Yes." "5 remain." "Yes." Ron's hands tightened on the chair. "Stop counting him like supplies." Hermione turned to him. "I'm counting because he is." Ron looked furious, then lost, then furious again because lost hurt too much. Aragorn spoke for the first time since sitting. "She is right." Ron's eyes snapped to him. "You don't know anything about him." "No," Aragorn said, "but I know war, and I know what it is to ask the living to carry the weight of the dead." McGonagall's face hardened. "He is 17. Aragorn did not look away. "Many who save worlds are younger than the worlds deserve." The room chilled. McGonagall rose slowly. "Do not dress this in nobility." "I do not. You call it necessity." "I do. He is a boy. He is also the only creature now capable of ending your enemy." McGonagall's wand hand trembled. "Not with fear, with rage. I will not have Harry Potter spent like coin because kings and wizards have decided the arithmetic is convenient." Aragorn's voice remained quiet. "There is nothing convenient about this. He should have been protected. Yes, he should have been taught. Yes, he should have been allowed to live 1 year of his life without being prepared for death." Aragorn bowed his head. "Yes." The agreement robbed the anger of somewhere easy to go. McGonagall's mouth twisted. "Then why do you sit there and speak as though sacrifice is strategy?" Aragorn looked older than he had a moment before. "Because sometimes strategy is the name we give to sacrifice when there are others depending on its success." No one spoke. Then Hermione did. "We need him." Ron stared at her. Hermione kept her eyes on the map. Her voice was steady, too steady. "The locket is with him. The cup is probably still in Bellatrix Lestrange's vault at Gringotts. Nagini remains with Voldemort. The ring was destroyed in our original information chain, but if Dumbledore died before finishing the work, Voldemort may have recovered the stone or re-anchored through the remains. And Hogwarts itself." She stopped. McGonagall looked sharply at her. "What about Hogwarts?" Hermione's fingers moved across the map to the black circle around the castle. When he took the school, he didn't just occupy it. Reports say the castle wards changed color. The ghosts have gone silent. The room of requirement resisted entry even from Death Eaters before Harry breached it. There are rumors of students hearing Parseltongue from the walls. Neville's face went pale. You think he made the castle a Horcrux? No, Hermione said. Not the whole castle. That would be too large, too unstable, but he may have anchored a fragment into a symbolic body. Faramir, who had been silent until now, leaned forward, a conquered throne. Hermione looked at him. Yes, Faramir's expression darkened. A king who cannot keep a kingdom may try to bind himself to the idea of one. Aragorn nodded grimly. Hogwarts became his banner. McGonagall closed her eyes. The pain on her face was almost private. My school. Hermione's voice nearly broke, but she forced it flat. If he used the death of Hogwarts as an act of murder, if enough defenders died when he claimed it, then he could have made a new anchor from the conquest itself. Not a traditional object. A place fragment, bound to foundation stone, ward core, or throne point. Ron whispered. Can he do that? Gandalf answered. Evil is often inventive where mercy would have been simpler. Ron looked sick. Hermione placed 5 markers on the table. Locket, cup, Nagini, ring, Hogwarts anchor. 5 targets, she said. 5 breaths. Ron pushed away from the table. The chair fell backward. This is mad. No one argued. That made him angrier. He can't keep doing this. Did any of you see him, properly see him? Or are we just accepting that Harry turns into a dragon now because the war got weird? Gimli snorted. Wars do that. Legolas gave him a look. Ron rounded on the dwarf. This isn't funny. No, Gimli said. It is not, but shouting at the mountain will not make it shorter. Ron looked ready to throw something. Then the wards trembled again, not screamed, trembled. The air in the cottage changed. Hermione felt it first. Heat, faint but unmistakable, rolled beneath the door. Everyone froze. Outside, something enormous landed on the moor. The ground did not shake like an earthquake. It bowed like a living thing accepting a heavier truth. McGonagall went white. Ron moved before anyone could stop him. He ran to the door and threw it open. Harry! The moor beyond was dark under the late afternoon sky. Rain moved sideways in silver lines. At first, Hermione saw only a shape beyond the wards. Vast. Black, folded wings. A head lowered nearly to the ground, gold eyes burning through the rain. Then the shape shrank, not quickly, not cleanly. The dragon collapsed inward behind a curtain of steam and shadow. Wings folded into nothing. Scales became skin. Horns vanished. The long neck shortened. The enormous head bowed, changed, broke down into something smaller and shaking. Harry Potter fell to his knees in the wet grass, human, mostly. Hermione's breath caught. He wore the same torn robes he had disappeared in, though they hung differently now, stretched and scorched. His hair was wet and wild. His face was thinner. His skin had a faint gray undertone like ash had settled beneath it and refused to wash away. And his eyes, Hermione gripped the doorframe. Around the green of Harry's eyes were rings of molten gold, not reflected light, not a trick of rain, permanent. Ron stepped forward. Harry flinched. It was tiny, almost nothing. But Ron saw it, so did Hermione. The flinch was not fear. It was the movement of something unused to being approached without deciding first whether to bite. Ron stopped. The space between them became unbearable. Harry looked at him, then at Hermione, then at McGonagall in the doorway. His mouth opened. For a moment, no words came. When he spoke, his voice was rougher than it should have been. Hello. Ron let out a laugh that was almost a sob. You absolute idiot. Harry blinked slowly, as if translating, then one corner of his mouth moved. Yeah, that single word nearly undid Hermione. She did not run to him. She wanted to. Every part of her wanted to. But Harry stood with his shoulders angled oddly, weight slightly forward, hands loose at his sides like claws he had not quite remembered how to hide. His eyes kept moving. Door, windows, roofline, wands, exits. The dragon did not want to be touched. So Hermione stayed where she was. McGonagall did not. She stepped into the rain, and for a moment she was not a general, not a professor, not the last spine of a broken resistance. She was a teacher looking at a student who had come back wrong. Potter, she said. Harry's face tightened. That name reached him. McGonagall's lips trembled once, then steadied. "You are late." Harry stared. Ron made a broken sound. Hermione covered her mouth. Harry looked down. Rain ran off his hair into his eyes. "Sorry, Professor." McGonagall crossed the distance and stopped just out of arm's reach. She did not hug him. Hermione loved her for that. "I should think so," McGonagall said. "You have caused considerable structural damage to my school." Harry's eyes flickered gold. "Hogwarts isn't yours right now." McGonagall absorbed that like a slap, then nodded. "No, but it will be again." Harry looked at the cottage. His gaze found Gandalf inside. Something eased in his shoulders, not much, enough they brought him in. The cottage became too small around him, even in human form. Harry sat near the hearth, not because he was cold, but because everyone unconsciously made space there. Steam rose from his robes. Someone offered him tea. He held the mug in both hands and stared at it for several seconds before seeming to remember what it was for. Hermione watched him drink. Too hot. He did not notice. Ron noticed too. His face changed. Kingsley asked for a report. McGonagall shot him a look sharp enough to cut parchment. Harry answered anyway, diadems gone. His voice was clipped, declarative, sparse. "How?" Kingsley asked. Harry's gaze shifted to him, swallowed it, burned it. Neville swallowed hard. Harry looked away. "I had to?" "No one said you didn't," Neville said quickly. Harry nodded once, but it was unclear whether he believed him. Hermione sat across from him. "How long were you transformed?" Harry stared at the fire. 9 hours, maybe 10. "Any memory loss?" Ron looked sharply at her. Harry answered before Ron could object. "Yes." Hermione's fingers tightened around her quill. "What did you lose?" Harry's jaw worked. Password to Gryffindor Tower. McGonagall closed her eyes. "And," Harry's face went still. Hermione's middle name. The room froze. Hermione could not breathe. Ron whispered, "It's Jean." Harry nodded. "I know now." "That doesn't count," Ron said. Harry looked at him. Ron's voice shook. "You forgot it. That doesn't just get fixed because someone says it." Harry's eyes flashed brighter. "Then don't say it." The words came out too fast, too sharp. The room tightened. Harry looked down at his hands. His fingers were trembling. "Sorry." Ron stared at him, then pulled out the chair beside him and sat down hard. "You're still a prat." Harry looked confused. Ron leaned forward, elbows on knees. "That means I'm not scared of you." Harry's throat moved. He did not answer. Food was brought because Molly Weasley had taught half the order that food was what you did when grief had no instructions. There was roasted rabbit from a trapline Neville had set that morning. Bread, potatoes, a thin stew. Harry reached for the rabbit first. That was not strange. The way he ate it was, he tore into it before anyone passed a knife. Not violently, exactly, automatically. Teeth first, too quick, too hungry. The conversation died. Harry stopped chewing. Slowly, he looked down at the meat in his hand. Red near the bone, not cooked through. His face emptied. Hermione looked at Ron. Ron looked at the table. McGonagall turned toward the sink, giving Harry the mercy of pretending to check a kettle. Harry set the meat down. "I didn't realize." Gandalf from the corner spoke gently. "The beast remembers hunger even when the boy returns." Harry's mouth tightened. "Helpful." "No," Gandalf said. "Only true." Harry laughed once under his breath. That sound was still human, barely. After food, they returned to the map. The rain strengthened outside. The cottage roof ticked and hissed. 2 worlds crowded around one table. Harry stood this time. He did not sit. Hermione suspected sitting made him feel trapped. Gandalf placed a small black stone on the edge of the map. "This marks the place by which we may return for a time to Middle-earth. The tier remains unstable. It will not remain open forever." "Can we use it against Voldemort?" Kingsley asked. "No," Gandalf said. "Not safely. It was opened by accident and violence. To widen it would risk both worlds." "Then why are you here?" McGonagall asked. Aragorn answered. "Because a war that spills through a wound between worlds becomes the concern of both." Gimli grunted. "And because the lad flew out of our mountain carrying trouble big enough for 2 histories." Harry glanced at him. "Thanks. You're welcome." Legolas studied Harry quietly. "You fly wounded." Harry stiffened. Ron's head snapped up. "What?" Harry gave the elf a flat look. "It's fine." Legolas's expression did not change. The left wing. Harry said nothing. Hermione wrote it down. Harry noticed. Don't. I'm not letting you die because you dislike notes. I'm already. He stopped. The unfinished sentence sat in the room. Already what? Already dying, already not human, already gone. Ron stood abruptly outside. Harry looked at him. What? Ron nodded toward the door. Outside. Now, Ron, Hermione said. No. He needs air, and I need to say something without kings, wizards, and everyone's tragic eyebrows watching. Gimli touched his own brow. Mine are not tragic, Legolas murmured. They are committed. Despite everything, Neville snorted. Harry stared at Ron, then walked outside. Ron followed. Hermione stayed still for 3 seconds. Then she got up and went after them, stopping just inside the broken fence where she could hear but not intrude. The moor rolled black and wet beneath the evening sky. Harry stood with his back to the cottage, looking toward the hills. Ron stood several feet away. For once, he did not fill silence quickly. Harry did not either. Finally, Ron said, I'm angry. Harry's shoulders tightened. I know. No, you don't. You think I'm angry because you turned into a dragon. Harry glanced back. Most people would be. I'm angry because you did it alone. Harry looked away. I wasn't exactly given time to send an owl. Ron huffed. It was almost a laugh. Then he shook his head. You always do this. Do what? Find the worst possible thing in the world and decide it's yours to carry. Harry's voice hardened. It is mine. No, it's not. Harry turned. The gold rings around his eyes brightened in the rain. Voldemort put a piece of his soul in my head. He took Hogwarts. He'll keep killing until he's stopped. Whose is it then? Ron stepped closer. Ours? Harry froze. Ron's voice was rough now. You stupid dragon-shaped git. Ours. That was the whole point of us coming with you, wasn't it? Not because we had better ideas, not because we enjoyed camping and starving and almost dying every week, because it was ours. Harry's expression twisted. I'm dangerous. Yeah, you were dangerous before. Remember second year, giant snake, sword, loads of blood, very dramatic. Harry stared at him. Ron's mouth pulled into something almost like a grin. Honestly, mate, dragon is just you being extra. Harry made a sound, not quite laughter, not quite pain. Ron took another step. Harry did not flinch this time. You can still come back, Ron said. Harry looked down. No, yes, you heard them. I heard a lot of people talking like they've already written your ending. Harry's voice dropped. I forgot things. Then we remind you, I ate someone. Ron went pale. But he did not step back. I don't care how many of them you've eaten. Harry looked up sharply. Ron swallowed. I mean, I care a bit, obviously. That's not normal dinner behavior. Despite herself, Hermione pressed a hand to her mouth. Harry's face cracked. Only slightly. Ron kept going. But I don't care what you look like in the mirror. I don't care if your eyes go gold or you cough smoke or sleep on a pile of stolen forks. Come back when this is done. Harry's eyes shone. Rain hid whether it was water or tears. I don't know if I can. Ron nodded. Then we'll be annoyingly persistent about it. Harry looked at him for a long time. Then, very carefully, as if the gesture belonged to someone else, he held out his hand. Ron took it. He pulled Harry into a hug. Harry went rigid. For one awful second, Hermione thought he would shove Ron away. Then Harry's shoulders folded inward. He did not hug back properly, but he let himself be held. That was enough. Hermione turned away before either of them saw her crying. When they returned inside, the council resumed, but something had changed, not fixed. Nothing was fixed. But the room no longer looked at Harry only as a weapon. They looked at him as a person carrying a weapon inside his ribs. That difference mattered. Hermione wiped her face and returned to the map. 5 targets, she said again, voice steadier now. We need locations and order. Harry stood beside her, close enough that she could feel warmth coming off him, not body heat, ember heat. The locket's here, he said, touching his chest. Not first, Hermione said immediately. Harry looked at her. Why? Because you're already attached to it. The room went silent. Harry's eyes narrowed. Hermione forced herself not to soften the words. The longer you carry something, the more the dragon wants to keep it. You hesitated with the diadem, didn't you? Harry said nothing. That means the locket is dangerous because it has history with you. We destroy the cup first, then the locket, then the remaining 3 when we can force proximity. Aragorn nodded slowly. Sensible. McGonagall looked at Hermione with an expression that was almost grief, almost pride. Harry's voice was low. You've thought about this? I've thought about nothing else. That landed between them. Harry looked away first. Faramir moved a marker to Gringotts. The goblins will not love an army at their door. No, Kingsley said, but they may hate Voldemort more. Hatred opens doors poorly, Faramir said. Grievance opens them better. Gimli nodded approvingly. That one speaks dwarf sense. Faramir almost smiled. Hermione marked Gringotts, then Little Hangleton, then Malfoy Manor, then Hogwarts. The map looked impossible, but not shapeless. That mattered too. A plan did not make victory likely. It made terror stand in lines. At last, McGonagall placed both hands on the table. We proceed under one condition. Everyone looked at her. Her eyes moved to Harry. You are not to be treated as a beast to be released. You are not to be sent where we would not send a son. Aragorn bowed his head. Agreed. Gandalf said softly, agreed. Hermione said nothing because if she opened her mouth she might break. Harry stared at McGonagall. His voice came out rough. I'm not your son, Professor. McGonagall's face changed, only for a moment, then she straightened. No, she said. You are my student. That is quite enough. Harry's expression went still. The gold in his eyes dimmed a little. Outside, the rain eased. For the first time since Hogwarts fell, the cottage did not feel like a hiding place. It felt like a war room. Gandalf stood by the window, looking toward the dark hills. Aragorn and Kingsley spoke in low voices about movement, distraction, and time. Faramir studied goblin politics with Hermione. Gimli asked Neville whether British goblins were as fond of contracts and grudges as proper folk. And Neville, exhausted beyond fear, answered honestly that they were probably worse. Legolas remained near the door, listening to the wind. Ron stayed beside Harry, not touching him now, just there. Harry looked at the map. 5 markers, 5 breaths. 5 pieces of Voldemort's soul left to gather and burn. His hand rose unconsciously to the locket. Hermione saw his fingers tighten, then release. Good, she thought, not safe, never safe, but good. The chapter ended not with victory, nor hope exactly, but with arithmetic, the locket with Harry. The cup in Gringotts, Nagini at Voldemort's side, the ring somewhere in his reach, and Hogwarts itself, wounded and chained, waiting to be freed or burned. 5 Horcruxes remained, 5 forge fires remained. And for the first time, Harry would not hunt them alone. Chapter 4, The Hoarder's Math. What if Harry was a dragon Animagus? The goblins agreed to meet at dawn. That was the first warning. No goblin who trusted a wizard chose dawn. Dawn was a human hour, too soft and symbolic, full of foolish ideas about fresh starts. Goblins preferred older parts of the day, midnight for secrecy, noon for insult, the deep hours before morning for business that left stains. So when Griffook's replacement sent word that the senior tellers of Gringotts would receive the Order's delegation at dawn, Hermione knew they were not being welcomed. They were being measured. The meeting took place on a hill overlooking London, not inside Diagon Alley, not inside Gringotts, not anywhere the goblins could be cornered or accused of inviting war into their own halls. The hill was cold, bare, and wet with early mist. Below, Muggle London slept uneasily beneath a grey sky. Far beyond the buildings, the magical district remained hidden, but Hermione could feel it like a bruise behind the world. Faramir stood beside her, calm and watchful. Kingsley was there too, wrapped in a dark cloak with his wand hidden but ready. McGonagall stood straight-backed despite the wind cutting through the grass. Ron hovered near Harry, not obviously guarding him, but not quite pretending otherwise. Harry looked almost normal from a distance. That was the dangerous part. The torn robes had been replaced with plain dark clothing. Hermione had spelled the fabric to resist heat, though everyone knew that meant almost nothing against what he carried inside him. His hair still refused order. His glasses were repaired. His face was pale, but his eyes gave him away, green at the center, gold at the edges. And when he breathed, the mist in front of his mouth sometimes curled like smoke before fading. He had slept for 14 hours after the council, not peacefully. At one point, he had woken with his hand around the locket and his teeth bared at nothing. Ron had spoken first, soft and stupid and brave. "Oi, that's not breakfast." Harry had let go, but the mark of the chain remained red against his throat. Now the locket hung under his shirt, hidden from view. Hermione hated that. She hated not seeing it. She hated seeing it more. The goblins arrived without sound. 6 of them emerged from the mist, short, sharp-faced, and richly dressed in black and silver. Their eyes moved over the hill, over the wizards, over the strangers from Middle-earth, and finally to Harry. They did not bow, neither did McGonagall. That seemed to satisfy them. The goblin at the front wore a heavy collar of worked iron. His ears were pierced with rings that chimed faintly when he moved. His expression suggested he had never once been surprised by a wizard and did not intend to begin today. "I am Ragnarok," he said. "Senior claim-keeper of Gringotts under occupation law." Kingsley's eyes narrowed slightly. "Occupation law?" "Your Dark Lord has claimed authority over wizarding Britain," Ragnarok said. "He has not claimed ownership of Gringotts. These are different things." Wizards often fail to understand the difference between ruling something and being tolerated near it. Gimli, who had come despite several warnings that goblin politics were not dwarf politics, made a low, approving sound. Ragnarok's eyes snapped to him. "And you are Gimli, son of Gloin." Ragnarok stared. "Not a wizard." "No, good." Hermione almost smiled, almost. Faramir stepped forward. He carried no wand, no sword in hand, only a folded parchment. "I speak for those who wish to prevent Voldemort from turning your bank into a tomb." Ragnarok's lip curled at the name, though not with fear. "The Dark Lord has made many threats." "Yes," Faramir said, "but not all threats are equal. He has hidden a soul anchor inside one of your vaults. If he falls back into Gringotts, your halls become part of his immortality, not a bank. A coffin he refuses to leave." The goblins went very still. Hermione watched them closely. That had landed. Ragnarok's long fingers flexed once. "You claim there is such an object." "I claim there is a cup," Hermione said. "Gold, small, Helga Hufflepuff's, stored in the Lestrange vault. It contains a fragment of Voldemort's soul." The goblin beside Ragnarok hissed something in gobbledygook. Ragnarok did not look away from Hermione. "And you propose to remove it?" "Yes." "You propose to enter a vault under our protection?" "Yes." "You propose to bring that?" His eyes moved to Harry. "Near our bank." The word that struck the air like a blade. Ron stepped forward. Harry caught his sleeve, not hard, just enough. Ron stopped. Harry's voice was quiet. "I don't want your gold." Ragnarok smiled without warmth. "Dragons always say that before the counting begins." Harry's eyes flashed brighter. For 1 second, Hermione felt the heat rise from him. Then Harry lowered his head. "I want the cup." Ragnarok studied him. "And after you take it, I burn it. With the bank beneath you." "No. Where?" Harry looked toward the distant city. "High enough that nothing else burns." A goblin behind Ragnarok laughed once, sharp, disbelieving. "You expect us to open the Lestrange vault for you because you promise politeness?" Faramir unfolded the parchment. "No, because we offer terms." Ragnarok's eyes glittered. "Terms are the first civilized word spoken today." Kingsley looked mildly offended. Gimli looked delighted. The negotiation was not long. That, Hermione discovered, was because goblins did not waste time pretending greed was shameful. They wanted guarantees, legal ones, magical ones, blood-binding ones, until McGonagall refused so coldly that even Ragnarok blinked. The final agreement was written in 3 languages. In exchange for allowing access to the Lestrange vault and temporary suspension of defensive dragon protocols, Gringotts would receive public recognition of goblin neutrality during Voldemort's occupation, full restoration of seized goblin-forged items taken by Death Eaters, and first claim to any Death Eater assets deposited after the fall of Voldemort, pending crimes against goblin sovereignty. Kingsley muttered, "You are very optimistic about there being a ministry left to enforce this." Ragnarok dipped his quill. "Then rebuild one that can read contracts." Faramir signed as witness. McGonagall signed for the order. Ragnarok signed for Gringotts. Harry did not sign. The goblin did not ask him to. That was the part that bothered Hermione most. Ragnarok looked up at Harry only when the parchment sealed itself with silver flame. "You will not enter through the public hall," the goblin said. "You are too large, even as a boy, in the ways that matter." Harry gave a humorless half-smile. "Story of my life." Ragnarok ignored the joke. "At the 7th bell after dawn, the western roof gate will open. You will take dragon form outside city limits. You will fly directly to the gate. You will not descend into the treasure levels beyond the Lestrange vault. You will not touch any property not named in this agreement. You will not breathe fire inside Gringotts." Harry's face became still. "I understand." "If your hunger overcomes your understanding," Ragnarok said, "we will kill you." Ron made a sound. Ragnarok's gaze did not move from Harry. "Or try," the goblin amended. Harry nodded once. "Fair." The goblin's expression shifted almost invisibly. "Respect, perhaps." "Or calculation wearing respect's coat." "7th bell," Ragnarok said. Then the goblins turned and disappeared into the mist. For a moment no one spoke. Then Gimli exhaled. "Well, I like them." Ron stared at him. "You would." Harry said nothing. His hand had risen unconsciously to the locket. Hermione saw, so did Gandalf, who stood farther down the hill with his staff planted in the wet grass. His eyes met Hermione's. Neither of them said what they were thinking. The cup first, then the locket. And somewhere inside Harry, the dragon was learning that treasures could be negotiated into its mouth. Ugh! The transformation happened in an abandoned quarry north of London. They chose the place because stone walls would hide the first moments when Harry was most vulnerable and least himself. They also chose it because there was nothing nearby to burn by accident. Harry removed his glasses first, then his shoes, then the locket. That last part took effort. Hermione saw his fingers pause on the chain, only a pause, but longer than before. Ron noticed too. "Want me to hold it?" he asked. Harry looked at him. For a heartbeat, the gold around his pupils sharpened. "No." Ron did not push. Harry placed the locket on a flat stone. He stared at it. The silver casing reflected the gray sky. Hermione wanted to step between them, but Gandalf shook his head once. This had to be Harry's choice. Harry turned away. "Do it quickly," he said. No one had to do anything. That was the horror of it. The dragon was already in him. He reached for it, and it reached back. The change tore through him, less violently than the first forging, but no less painful. His spine bent. His ribs widened. His hands struck the quarry floor and became claws before the rest of him had caught up. Scales flooded over skin. His jaw lengthened. Wings erupted into the mist, throwing cold air across the stone pit. Ron looked away only once. Hermione did not. She forced herself to watch because someone had to remember every cost precisely. Within minutes, Harry Potter was gone from human shape. The dragon crouched in the quarry, black-scaled, veined with mithril, eyes molten and enormous. His wounded left wing unfurled stiffly. The tear from the crossbow bolt had healed in human form as a scar, but in dragon form the membrane still bore a pale line, thinner than the surrounding flesh. A door where death could enter. The locket lay on the stone below him, tiny, his head lowered toward it. Hermione's heart stopped. "Harry," Ron said. The dragon froze. Only one eye moved toward Ron. Ron swallowed. "Cup first." For several seconds, nothing happened. Then the dragon exhaled. Smoke rolled over the stone, but no fire came. Harry turned away from the locket. Hermione breathed again. The dragon launched himself from the quarry. The force of his wings knocked 3 people to the ground and sent loose stones clattering down the walls. He rose through the mist like a black mountain taking flight. Above London, the sky opened around him. He flew high enough that muggles below would see only a dark shape moving behind cloud. Not invisible. Never invisible, but distant enough to become rumor before panic. At the 7th bell after dawn, the western roof gate of Gringotts opened. It was not part of the public bank. No wizard tourist had ever seen it. It unfolded from the upper stonework like the jaw of a sleeping beast, revealing a tunnel large enough for something ancient and winged to enter. Harry folded his wings and dropped. Diagon Alley exploded into chaos below. Even warned, even hidden, even under occupation, no one was prepared for the sight of him. Wizards ran. Shop signs rattled. Dark-robed patrols shouted and scattered. Somewhere a curse flew up from Nocturne Alley and struck Harry's flank. It broke. Harry did not look down. The roof gate swallowed him. Inside Gringotts, the tunnel sloped sharply into darkness. Harry dug his claws into the stone to slow himself. Sparks flew. The walls were reinforced with goblin metal that smelled sharp and old, not unlike mithril but angrier. Every instinct in him said treasure lay below. Rivers of it, vaults of it, piled, counted, guarded, sleeping beneath stone. The dragon's hunger rose like a tide, gold, silver, goblin-forged steel. Names pressed into coins, jewels with blood on them, mine. No, Harry forced the thought through the vastness of his skull. Cup, only cup. The tunnel opened into a cavernous vault chamber where goblins waited on high balconies, crossbows and hooked spears aimed down. None of them looked comfortable. None of them ran. Ragnarok stood before the open door of the Lestrange vault. The vault itself glittered. That was a cruel word for it. Glittered sounded pretty. This was a sickness of light, gold mountains, silver fountains, gemmed boxes, spears, shields, coins, statues, necklaces, crowns, goblets, blades. 1,000 lifetimes of stolen wealth stacked on itself until the vault looked less like storage and more like an accusation. Harry's claws sank into the stone floor. The dragon saw no theft, only hoard. Every item cold, every surface shone. Every jewel reflected him as he should be. Vast, armored, possessive, eternal, Ragnarok's voice cracked like a whip. Named property only. Harry's head swung toward him. A low growl filled the chamber. Several goblins raised their weapons. Ragnarok did not move. Named, he repeated. For one dangerous moment, Hermione's plan hung by a thread in a place she could not reach. Then Harry's nostrils flared, beneath the gold, beneath the silver, beneath old curses and greed and bloodline protections, he found it, the cup, small, golden. Wrong. It sat near the rear of the vault, half hidden beneath a jeweled basin and a coil of pearls. The Horcrux inside it recoiled the instant Harry's attention touched it. Harry moved, carefully at first, then not carefully enough. His shoulder brushed a stack of coins. They multiplied. The Gemino curse awakened with a hiss. Gold burst outward in a glittering wave, coins becoming coins, filling space, spilling against Harry's claws. The dragon recoiled. More treasure slid and multiplied, heat flared in his throat, not forge fire, anger, possession. The vault was attacking its own hoard. Wrong. Mine. A goblin shouted. Ragnarok snarled something in gobbledygook. Harry slammed one claw down and pinned the multiplying tide before it could bury the cup completely. The coins burned where his talons touched them, not from magic but from the heat of his body. He reached with the tip of one claw, too large. The cup slipped. The Horcrux tried to vanish under the swelling treasure. Harry hissed. Then he did the only thing he could. He lowered his head and took the cup in his teeth, not swallowed, not yet. The gold tasted of poison. The soul inside it screamed into his mouth. For a second, Bellatrix Lestrange's laughter seemed to echo from the walls. Harry backed away. Treasure clung to his scales. Coins rained off his chest. Pearls snapped beneath his claws. The dragon wanted to gather more, to curl around the vault, to punish the goblins for pointing weapons at him, to keep everything that shone. Then a voice cut through the hunger. Not from the chamber, from memory. Ron, cup first. Harry turned. He lunged into the tunnel and climbed. Behind him, Ragnarok shouted orders. The vault door slammed shut. The roof gate opened ahead like a square of pale sky. Harry burst out of Gringotts with the cup clamped between his teeth. London saw him now. There was no hiding it. A dragon erupted from the roof of a hidden bank in the middle of the city, black wings tearing mist apart, gold and pearls falling from his scales like cursed rain. Wizards in Diagon Alley screamed. Death Eaters fired spells. A green curse struck the underside of his jaw and glanced off, leaving a smoking cut along softer flesh. Pain flashed. Harry climbed. Higher, higher. He could not burn above the city, too dangerous. He flew east, following the silver ribbon of the Thames until buildings thinned and river widened. Clouds gathered around him. The cup writhed between his teeth, trying to cut his mouth with cold. He swallowed. The cup slid down into his gullet. Immediately, the dragon wanted to keep it. The cup was warm now. Gold, old, precious, Hufflepuff's cup, Founder's cup, a thing with history. A thing that belonged in a hoard, not in ash. Harry's wings beat slower. Below him, the Thames turned like dull steel. The Horcrux whispered, not words, images. A vault of his own deep beneath a mountain, the locket beside the cup. The diadem Ash remade somehow and gathered back, the ring. The snake, all of Voldemort's scattered soul collected in him, not destroyed but possessed. No one could take them. No one could hurt what he kept. No one could leave. Harry's jaws opened in a soundless snarl. No, the furnace in his throat stirred. The cup screamed. Harry breathed inward. Forge fire number 2 woke. White-black flame turned inside him, older than wizardry, hotter than hatred. It wrapped the cup before the metal could melt, attacking the soul first. The Horcrux resisted violently, clawing at the inner walls of his throat, trying to anchor itself to the dragon's hunger. For one awful instant, Harry felt it stick. Something tiny and cold scraped against him. Then the fire surged. The cup cracked. A burst of gold light flashed behind his ribs. The fragment of Voldemort's soul shrieked once and vanished. Ash rose into Harry's mouth. He coughed it into the sky over the river. No flame fell. No building burned, only a thin black rain drifted down and dissolved before reaching the water. 4 Horcruxes remained. 4. Harry's wings faltered. No, he counted locket, Nagini, ring, Hogwarts anchor. 4 anchors, but breaths. The scar shard had burned free during forging diadem. 1. Cup 2. 4 true breaths remained, yet Hermione's plan said the locket came next. After that, 3. The math steadied him. He turned north again. His mouth tasted of gold and ash. Inside his gullet, where the cup had burned, something still felt cold, not much. A speck, a scratch, a memory of poison. Harry did not understand it, so he ignored it. That was a mistake. The locket was destroyed on the moors, not because it was safest there, because Harry refused to bring it into a cave. No one argued with him. After Gringotts, the Order regrouped at a stretch of open land between 2 ridges, miles from any village and far from roads. Wind moved hard across the heather. Rain threatened but did not fall. Harry landed as a dragon and did not immediately change back. That frightened Hermione. He stood with his wings half spread, head lowered, smoke curling from his nostrils. His eyes remained fixed on the place where the locket lay on a flat stone, its chain coiled like a sleeping snake. He had carried it for too long, through tents, through hunger, through arguments, through the fall of Hogwarts, through Mordor, through transformation. The dragon knew it. The boy knew it too. The locket was not just a Horcrux now, it was a habit. Ron stood beside Hermione, both hands shoved into his pockets. "How long?" he asked quietly. Hermione checked her watch. "He has been transformed for nearly 11 hours total today." "That bad? Bad enough." Ron looked toward Harry. "Should we make him change back first?" "No," Hermione said, her voice hurt. "If he changes back before burning it, he may not let us near it again." Ron stared at her. She did not take it back. Across the moor, Gandalf stood with his staff planted before him. Aragorn watched from a distance, one hand near his sword, not threatening. Ready, Harry lowered his head to the stone. The locket clicked open. No one had touched it. It opened by itself. From within came voices, not loud, not dramatic. That would have been easier. Soft voices, familiar voices. Ron heard his mother first. "Oh, Harry dear, so much trouble, so much danger. Wouldn't it be kinder to stop?" Ron went pale. Hermione heard herself, her own voice smaller and afraid. "You're becoming exactly what they need you to be. Not what you are, not Harry, a weapon. A beast." Harry's huge head twitched. The dragon listened. The locket changed tactics. Dumbledore's voice came next. "My dear boy, you were always meant to walk into fire." McGonagall flinched as if struck. Harry's claws dug into the earth. Then Voldemort spoke, not from the locket, from memory. From scar memory, though the scar shard was gone. "You gather what is mine because you know deep down that ownership is power." The locket rose slightly from the stone, trembling. Harry's jaws opened. Hermione thought he was going to swallow it. Instead, he coughed. A terrible, deep convulsion shook his body. Smoke burst from his nostrils. He coughed again, and something black spilled from his mouth onto the stone. The cup's ash, no, not all of it. Hermione stepped forward before she could stop herself. A smear of dark residue clung to the stone, glittering faintly like powdered glass. Her blood went cold. The cup had burned. But not cleanly. Microscopic soul residue had remained inside Harry's gullet, and now had been shaken loose by the locket's call. Gandalf saw it, so did Aragorn. Harry did not. His attention remained fixed on the locket. The Horcrux whispered again, "Keep me." The dragon's whole body stilled. Hermione began counting under her breath. 1, 2, 3. Harry did not move. 4. Ron whispered, "Mate." 5. The gold in Harry's eyes brightened. 6. Hermione's fingers closed around her wand. Not to attack him. She did not know what she meant to do. 7. Harry's throat glowed. For one terrifying moment, Hermione thought he was going to swallow the locket and not burn it. 8. Then Harry's head snapped down. He swallowed the locket whole. Ron swore. Hermione stopped breathing. The dragon reared back, wings flaring against the dark sky, his throat convulsed. The locket was inside him. The hoarder's sickness surged so violently that even those without magic felt it. The air grew possessive, heavy. The moor seemed to bend inward around Harry, as though the land itself had become treasure to be guarded. Mine. The word did not sound aloud. It did not need to. Everyone heard it. Harry's claws tore trenches in the earth. His wings folded around his body, not preparing to fly, protecting. Ron moved. Hermione grabbed his arm. "Don't." Ron shook her off. "Harry!" The dragon's head whipped toward him. One gold eye narrowed. Ron stopped just outside the reach of his jaws. His face was white, but he stayed. "That ugly thing made us wear it for months," Ron shouted. "It is not yours." The dragon growled. Ron pointed at his own chest. "It made me leave. Remember, it made me think I didn't matter. It made me think you two were better off without me." Harry's growl faltered. Ron stepped closer. "I came back." The dragon's throat pulsed with trapped fire. Ron's voice cracked. "So you come back too?" The moment stretched. Then Harry screamed, not roared, screamed. The furnace turned inward. Forge fire number 3 ignited. This burning was worse than the cup. The locket had roots in him. Memories, cold nights, the taste of resentment, the long chain around his neck. The way it had watched him suffer and learned his shape. It did not want to die. It wrapped itself around the dragon's desire to keep. It told him destruction was loss. It told him ash was poverty. It told him victory meant having nothing left. Harry forced the fire through it anyway. White-black flame lit the inside of his throat. The moor glowed through his scales, veins of mithril shining like lightning under obsidian. The locket screamed in 3 voices at once. Voldemort's, Harry's, and something small and broken that had never been human enough to deserve either. Then it broke. The chain snapped inside him. The casing cracked. The soul fragment burned. Harry collapsed. The impact shook the ridge. Smoke poured from his mouth, but no forge fire escaped. Only ash, black and silver, spilling onto the wet ground. 3 Horcruxes remained. 3 breaths remained. Exact, terrible, clean. Except Hermione had seen the residue. Harry changed back after sunset. It nearly broke him. Human shape returned slowly, unevenly, as if the dragon had to be convinced to release each part. Scales sank beneath skin, but left faint dark patterns along his arms for several minutes before fading. His teeth shortened, but his canines remained slightly too sharp. His eyes stayed gold-ringed even when the rest of him settled. He vomited ash until there was nothing left in him. Then he lay on his side in the wet grass, one hand pressed to his throat. Ron sat beside him, not speaking, just there. McGonagall transfigured a cloak into a blanket and placed it over Harry's shoulders. Her hand hovered for a second above his hair, then withdrew before touching. Harry noticed. His eyes closed. "Thank you," he rasped. McGonagall's face tightened. "You are welcome, Potter." Hermione wanted to go to him. Instead, she went to the ash, because that was what she did now. She gathered the residue from the locket burn in one vial. Then, when no one except Aragorn and Gandalf watched, she scraped the earlier black glitter from the stone into another. Cup residue? Not destroyed, not whole, not alive exactly, but present. A trace. A fragment of a fragment. The thought made her hands cold. Later, in the ruined shepherd's hut they used for cover, Hermione performed the tests. The others slept or pretended to. Harry was unconscious, wrapped in blankets, breathing smoke every few minutes. Ron sat near him with his back against the wall, wand across his knees. Neville dozed by the door. Kingsley kept watch outside. McGonagall sat in the corner with her eyes closed, though Hermione doubted she slept. Aragorn entered quietly. He did not ask permission. That should have annoyed Hermione. It did not. "You saw," she said. "Yes." She held up the vial. Inside, the black glitter clung to the glass. "The cup burned. I know it burned. The Horcrux is gone. The main soul fragment was destroyed." But not all passed cleanly. Hermione hated how calmly he understood. No, Gandalf stepped inside behind Aragorn. The hut seemed smaller with him in it. Hermione looked between them. Has this happened before? Gandalf's face darkened with memory. Not in this form. Aragorn's voice was quieter. But evil that is carried leaves marks. Hermione looked down at the vial. These are microscopic, magical residue only, not enough to re-anchor, not enough to think, not enough to act, but they are adhering to the inner tissue of his gullet. She swallowed. Every time he burns one, a trace remains in him. Gandalf closed his eyes, because he is both furnace and vessel. Yes, the word came out too sharply. Hermione lowered her voice. Yes. Aragorn glanced toward Harry's sleeping form. Does he know? No. Will you tell him? Hermione's grip tightened around the vial. I don't know. Gandalf looked at her with unbearable kindness. That made her angrier. Don't, she whispered. He said nothing. Hermione's voice shook despite her best efforts. If I tell him now, he may refuse to continue. Or worse, he may continue while thinking he has already lost. Either way, it changes the math. Aragorn nodded slowly. You speak of him as a commander speaks of troops. I know. The words broke. Hermione pressed her hand to her mouth. For several seconds, she was 17 again, terrified and exhausted and furious that no book had ever taught her how to save someone by not telling him the truth. Aragorn waited. When he spoke, his voice held no judgment. I have withheld truths in war. Hermione looked at him. Did it help? Sometimes. And the other times, it became another wound to carry after. Hermione almost laughed. That's not comforting. No, Aragorn said. Comfort is not always among the tools left to us. Gandalf moved to the small window. Outside, the moor was black beneath a thin moon. The residue may worsen the sickness, he said. Hermione nodded. I know. It may make the final gathering harder. I know. It may mean that even if he survives, he does not return whole. Hermione's eyes burned. He was never going to return whole. No one contradicted her. From the corner, Harry shifted in his sleep. His hand twitched toward his throat. Ron, still half awake, caught his wrist gently. Nothing there, Ron muttered. Ugly necklace is gone. Harry's breathing eased. Hermione turned away. Aragorn looked at the vial in her hand. What will you do? She sealed it with 3 charms. Keep studying. And tell him, Hermione watched Harry sleep. His shadow on the wall looked too long for his body. Not yet. Gandalf's face filled with sorrow, but he did not argue. That was how Hermione knew there was no right answer, only chosen damage. The next attack was not about Horcruxes. That was what made it frightening. Harry had expected each transformation to serve the Count. One breath. One anchor. One step closer, but war did not arrange itself so neatly. Voldemort had begun moving forces west, not randomly. He understood now that the Horcruxes were no longer safe where they rested. He understood that Harry could not be everywhere. He understood that the dragon was dangerous but limited, so he made the board smaller. Death Eater camps gathered in the Welsh marches, hidden among old hills and broken castles. Giants had been seen moving at night. Dementors drifted over villages and left people hollow by morning. Snatchers collected Muggleborns not for trial, but as bait. Voldemort wanted Harry angry. He wanted him flying fast. He wanted him wasting fire. He wanted the dragon to become a weapon before the boy could remain a person. Aragorn saw the trap. So did Hermione. Harry saw it too. That was worse, because he still chose to go. The plan was precise. No forge fire, no Horcrux burn. Only destruction enough to force Voldemort to consolidate around his remaining anchors. Harry would hit the Welsh encampment from the air. Kingsley and the Aurors would cut off retreat. Faramir and the Rangers would lead prisoners out. McGonagall and Neville would hold a corridor of escape through the hills. Ron and Hermione would remain at the command point. Harry hated that part. "You're not coming near the camp," he said. Ron folded his arms. "You saying that as Harry or as the giant lizard?" Harry's jaw tightened. "As someone who knows what happens when curses start flying." "Great! Then you know why we should be there." Hermione stepped in before it became a proper argument. "We're more useful coordinating the extraction. If Voldemort wants you to lose control, then putting us directly under your flight path helps him." Harry looked at her. The gold in his eyes had not faded since the locket. All right. That was it. No fight, no sarcasm, just agreement. Ron stared after him when he walked away. "I hate when he's reasonable now." Hermione did too. At dusk, Harry transformed on a ridge above the valley. The dragon rose against a blood-colored sky. This time he did not struggle with the wings. That frightened Hermione more than the first awkward flight. He was learning. The attack began with silence. Death Eaters expected roaring. Fire. Drama. Harry gave them shadow. He passed over the first watchtower without a sound, then dropped a boulder from his claws onto the siege engine below. Wood and iron shattered. The camp erupted into confusion. Only then did he roar. The sound rolled through the valley and turned courage into noise. Spells shot upward in panicked lines. Most broke against his scales. A few found seams. One struck the old wound in his left wing and made the membrane spasm. Another curse clipped the soft flesh beneath his jaw, drawing blood that fell smoking onto the grass. Harry did not answer with fire. He used claws, tail, wind, fear. He smashed supply wagons, tore open prison cages, collapsed watch platforms, beat his wings low enough to throw masked men off their feet without crushing the prisoners among them. It was terrible. It was controlled. That was what made everyone watching understand how much of Harry remained. A lesser beast would have burned the valley. Harry counted bodies, distances, exits. He avoided the prisoners. He struck only where he meant to strike, until the giants arrived. Two of them came from the northern slope, huge and gray in the fading light, iron collars around their necks and chains wrapped around their fists. Death Eaters had driven them forward with curses and fear. Harry turned toward them. For a moment, dragon and giant stared at each other across the valley. Then one giant hurled a tree. It struck Harry's shoulder hard enough to stagger him in the air. He fell, recovered, and landed on the ridge with claws digging deep into stone. The dragon wanted fire. Not forge fire, ordinary dragon fire, hot enough to blind, hot enough to kill, hot enough to end the threat. Harry opened his jaws, then he saw the collars. The giants were not allies of Voldemort. They were prisoners big enough to be used as weapons. Harry closed his mouth. He launched forward instead. The first giant swung a chain. It wrapped around Harry's neck and caught between two ridges of scale. Pain burst along the softer underside of his throat. The second giant grabbed his wounded wing. Harry roared. Death Eaters cheered. Then the dragon did something no one expected. He folded, not collapsed, folded. He dropped his weight and twisted like a serpent, pulling the chain-bearing giant off balance. His tail swept the second giant's legs. Both massive bodies hit the ground hard enough to shake the valley. Harry pinned one with a foreclaw and lowered his head. The giant stared up at him, terrified. Harry did not bite. He hooked one talon under the iron collar and tore it apart. The metal snapped. Dark magic burst out in black sparks. The giant gasped. The second giant stopped struggling. Harry turned and broke that collar too. For a heartbeat, the valley held its breath. Then the freed giants rose and turned on the Death Eaters. The battle ended quickly after that. Not cleanly, battles never did, but quickly. By moonrise, the camp was broken. Prisoners were moving through the escape corridor. Aurors bound surviving Death Eaters. Dementors had fled when Gandalf rode into the lower valley with white light blazing from his staff. Not a Patronus, not exactly, but something close enough that even Hermione stopped to stare. Harry remained on the ridge, dragon-shaped. Still, below, people cheered, not loudly, they were too tired for that, but they looked up at him with awe. That was dangerous. Hermione knew it at once. So did Aragorn, so did Gandalf. Harry's head lifted. The dragon heard the awe, liked it. The hoarder's sickness did not only want gold, it wanted fear, it wanted reverence, it wanted the valley to know who owned the sky. Ron appeared beside Hermione, breathing hard from running messages between groups. How long? Hermione checked her watch. 36 cumulative hours since the forging, more or less. Ron understood enough now to go pale. We need him down. Yes, but Harry was looking east, toward Hogwarts, toward Voldemort, toward whatever came next. His wings opened for a moment. Hermione thought he would fly away and not return. Then Ron lifted both hands to his mouth and shouted across the valley. "Oi, overgrown handbag!" Several nearby prisoners stared at him in horror. The dragon's head turned slowly. Ron swallowed, then kept going. "You done showing off, or should we start charging people tickets?" Silence. Then, from somewhere among the freed prisoners, Neville Longbottom laughed. It spread, not much, just enough, human sound. Absurd sound. Harry stared down at Ron, smoke curled from his nostrils. Then the dragon lowered its head. The laugh had reached him, not fully, but enough. He climbed down from the ridge and changed back behind a screen of conjured canvas and broken stone. When he emerged, he could barely walk. Ron caught him before he fell. Harry leaned on him without seeming to realize it. Hermione came closer. "Harry," he blinked at her. For one awful second, his face was blank. Then recognition returned. "Hermione," she exhaled. Ron tried to smile. "You remember me?" Harry looked at him. Unfortunately, Ron's grin shook at the edges. "Good enough." Harry's gaze drifted past them to the valley. "The giants?" "Free," Hermione said. "Prisoners?" "Most survived. Fire! You didn't use it." Harry nodded slowly. He seemed to be checking the facts against himself. Then his face changed, small, lost. "I can't remember her voice." Hermione's stomach dropped. "Whose?" Harry looked at the moonlit valley. "My mum's." Ron went still. Harry's own voice remained quiet, almost curious, as if reporting someone else's injury. "I remember she had one. I remember she sang, maybe. I remember the fact of it." His throat moved. But not the sound. No one spoke. The victory around them became very far away. Harry closed his eyes. 3 left. Hermione wanted to say, "That is not what matters," but the lie would have insulted both of them, so she said the truth. 3 left. Harry nodded. The dragon had broken a camp, freed prisoners, spared giants, and drawn Voldemort's eye exactly where they needed it. The cup was ash. The locket was ash. The count was perfect. 3 Horcruxes remained, 3 forge fires remained. And inside Harry's throat, invisible to everyone but Hermione's tests and Gandalf's grief, tiny shards of Voldemort's burned soul clung to the walls of the furnace. The math still worked. That was the cruelest part. It worked perfectly. Chapter 5, The Sickness. What if Harry was a dragon animagus? Harry refused to come down from the mountain. At first, no one understood that was what he was doing. After the raid in the Welsh marches, after the prisoners were freed and Voldemort's western camp was broken, Harry had flown north under cover of storm. That had been part of the plan. He was too large, too visible, too impossible to hide near the survivors. He would circle once, make certain they were not being followed, then return to the Highland Valley by dawn. Dawn came. Harry did not. By noon, Ron had stopped pretending to be calm. By evening, Hermione had checked every map 3 times, cross-referenced every known dragon behavior in 2 separate books, and snapped at Kingsley so sharply that McGonagall had quietly taken the reports out of her hands. By midnight, Gandalf stood outside the safe house looking north. He did not say what he feared. He did not have to. The next morning, Legolas returned from scouting. He had gone alone at sunrise, moving through the hills with that impossible silent speed that made even the Aurors uneasy. When he came back, his cloak was wet with mist, and his face was grave. Ron stood before he spoke. "Where is he?" Legolas looked toward Gandalf first, then Hermione, then Ron in a cave above the western ridge. Ron exhaled so hard it almost sounded like a laugh. Brilliant. Great, see, cave, normal, people like caves, Hagrid likes caves. Ron, Hermione said. Legolas's expression did not change. He has not changed back. The room went still. McGonagall's hand tightened around the back of a chair. How long? Hermione asked the question, but she already knew the answer would hurt. Legolas's eyes moved to the window, to the grey morning beyond it. If he transformed before the raid, then by my count, he paused. 62 hours. Ron's face emptied. No one corrected him. Hermione sat down because her knees had become unreliable. 62 hours. The longest Harry had remained dragon before this was just over 36 cumulative hours spread through a campaign day. That had cost him his mother's voice. 62 hours in one stretch was not strain. It was drowning. The hourglass, Gandalf said quietly. McGonagall turned to him. What does that mean now? Gandalf did not answer immediately. His silence made Ron slam a hand on the table. What does it mean? It means, Gandalf said, that the dragon has had time to become comfortable. Hermione closed her eyes. Comfortable, what a gentle word for horror. Kingsley's voice was low. Can he still change back? Gandalf looked toward the hills. Yes, the answer came too slowly. Ron heard it. But he may no longer wish to. No one spoke after that, not for a long moment. Then Aragorn rose from the corner where he had been sharpening a blade that did not need sharpening. I will go. Ron turned. So will I. Hermione stood too. And me. McGonagall stepped forward. No, Hermione stared at her. Professor, you are exhausted. So is he. You may not be able to help him. I'm the only one who might. The words came out before Hermione could soften them. McGonagall flinched. Hermione wanted to apologize, but the clock in her head was louder than guilt. 62 hours. Every minute mattered. Gandalf placed both hands on his staff. Ron and Hermione must go. McGonagall's face tightened. No child should walk willingly into a dragon's den. Gimli, from near the hearth, muttered, Historically, that is true. Ron looked at him. Not helpful. Accurate, though. Gandalf's gaze remained on McGonagall. The sickness feeds on possession, power, fear, and loneliness. If we approach him as warriors, he will answer as a dragon. If we approach as keepers, he will resist being kept. If we approach as judges, he will prove us right. Hermione whispered. So we approach as reminders. Gandalf nodded. Yes. McGonagall's expression shifted. She looked suddenly older. As friends, Ron swallowed. Yeah, Aragorn buckled his sword belt. I will come as well. Ron's eyes narrowed. You just heard him. Friends. Aragorn met his gaze steadily. I will not enter the cave. Hermione understood before Ron did. Her stomach went cold. You'll wait outside. Yes. Ron looked between them. Why? No one wanted to answer. Aragorn did anyway, because if the sickness has taken him completely, someone must stop what remains before it descends on the valleys. The words did not raise their voice. They did not need to. Ron stepped toward him. You think you can kill him? No, Aragorn said. I think I may have to try. The room chilled. Ron's hand went to his wand. Harry would have laughed at the absurdity of it maybe once. Ron Weasley threatening the king of another world in a cottage that smelled of damp socks and medicinal potions. But Harry was not there to laugh. Hermione put a hand on Ron's arm. Don't. Ron's voice shook. He's standing there talking about killing Harry. He's standing there saying the thing no one else will, Hermione said. Ron looked at her as if she had betrayed him. She almost looked away. She did not. If Harry is gone, Ron, truly gone, then a 200-foot dragon with Voldemort's soul residue in his throat and 3 forge fires left becomes the most dangerous creature alive. Ron's jaw trembled. He's not gone. I know. You don't sound like you know. I sound like I'm trying not to fall apart before we reach him. That stopped him. For a second, Ron was only a boy who wanted his best friend back. Then he nodded once. Fine. McGonagall moved toward the door. I am coming. Gandalf shook his head gently. Minerva, do not Minerva me. The old wizard's face softened. He may see teacher, authority, expectation, shame. Let those who were beside him before the world began spending him go first. McGonagall's eyes shone. For a moment she looked ready to argue anyway, then she turned away. "If you bring him back," she said, voice thin and sharp, "I reserve the right to be furious with him." Ron managed a weak smile. He'd expect nothing less. Hermione gathered what she needed, not weapons, not potions. Books, 3 of them. The first was Hogwarts, a history. The second was a thin charms textbook from first year, battered and annotated. The third was not hers. It was Harry's old copy of Quidditch Through the Ages, rescued from the Gryffindor common room by Neville before Hogwarts fell. It still had a note inside from Ron that said, "This book is boring unless you disagree with it loudly." Ron brought one thing, a chocolate frog card, Dumbledore's, folded down the middle, water-damaged, corners soft from years of being kept in pockets. Hermione saw it in his palm. Her throat tightened. Ron noticed. "Don't start." "I didn't say anything. You were thinking sadly." "I often think sadly now." "Yeah, well, think usefully." She almost laughed, almost. That was why Ron mattered. Even now he could make grief trip over its own feet. They left before noon. Gandalf came with them to the ridge path. Legolas guided them through the first stretch, then faded back into the trees with a promise to watch the lower slopes. Gimli wanted to come and was denied by everyone at once, which offended him deeply enough to keep him busy complaining. Faramir went too. He did not speak much during the climb, neither did Hermione. The path into the highlands narrowed quickly. Heather dragged at their legs. Mist collected in their hair and cloaks. The air grew colder as they climbed, but beneath the cold there was another temperature. Faint heat, uneven and alive, coming from somewhere above. Harry, or what Harry had become. At the final turn before the cave, Aragorn stopped. The entrance lay ahead, half hidden behind black rock and hanging moss. It was larger than it should have been. Not natural, Hermione thought, torn wider from the inside. The stone around it was scorched in long, curved marks, a dragon's claws. Ron looked at Aragorn. "You stay here." Aragorn nodded. "I know." His hand rested near his sword, but not on it. That mattered. Hermione met his eyes. "If he comes out wrong," Aragorn's voice was quiet, "then I will stand between him and the world for as long as I can." Ron made a bitter sound. "That's not comforting." "No," Aragorn said. "It is only my word." Ron stared at him, then, surprisingly, nodded. "Fine, but if you stab him before we're done talking, I'll haunt you." Gandalf, standing beside Aragorn, murmured, "I believe he might." Ron turned toward the cave. Hermione reached for his sleeve. "One thing." "What?" "If he speaks strangely, don't react." Ron swallowed. "Right. If he doesn't recognize us immediately, don't panic." "Already failing that one." "Ron." "I know." He took a breath. "I know." They entered. The cave smelled of smoke, wet stone, and metal. At first, Hermione saw only darkness. Then the darkness breathed. Gold light opened in it. One eye, then the other. Harry lay coiled around the back of the cavern, enormous and black-scaled, his body folded in loops of tail, wing, claw, and smoke. The mithril veins beneath his scales pulsed faintly like banked lightning. His head rested on a mound of gold. Hermione's stomach dropped. Gold, not Gringotts gold, not all of it. Some coins, yes, still caught between scales from the vault. But there were other things too: silver cups, broken shields, a wizard's pocket watch, a crown from some forgotten costume shop, jewelry, cutlery, a brass door handle, a cracked mirror, a child's music box, objects stolen from roads, abandoned houses, Death Eater camps, perhaps even from the ruins of villages he had flown over. Not because he needed them. Because the dragon had begun to collect without permission from the boy. The hoard glittered under his chin. Harry's pupils narrowed. Ron stopped breathing beside her. Hermione forced herself not to look at the gold again. Look at Harry, not the hoard, not the monster, Harry. His left wing was tucked close, the old scar across its membrane silver-white and thin. Smoke leaked slowly between his teeth. His claws curled protectively around the pile. When he spoke, the sound was not English at first. It was a low rumble that made Hermione's bones vibrate. Then words shaped themselves inside it. "Mine." Ron's face crumpled. Hermione stepped forward before he could. "No," she said gently. "It's just things." The dragon's head lifted, the cave ceiling groaned as one horn scraped stone. Mine. His voice was deeper than before. Less Harry, more mountain. Hermione's hand tightened around the book in her arms. We're not here for them. The dragon stared, gold eyes. No green visible now. Ron whispered. Harry, the dragon's gaze moved to him. Recognition flickered, then hunger covered it. Red one. Ron flinched. Hermione's chest hurt. Red one. Not Ron, not best friend, just color, shape, classification. Ron took one step forward anyway. That's rude. Accurate, but rude. The dragon's nostrils flared. Hot smoke rolled across the floor. Hermione coughed but did not retreat. You've been in this form too long, she said. You need to change back. The dragon's tail shifted around the horde. The gold chimed softly. No, Harry, no. This time the word cracked stone dust from the ceiling. Ron's wand hand twitched. Hermione shook her head once. No threats, no force, no shame. She knelt on the cold stone. Ron looked at her as if she had lost her mind. Maybe she had. Hermione opened Hogwarts, a history. The dragon's eyes narrowed. Book, he rumbled. Yes, Hermione said. Yours? Yes, keep. Sometimes. The dragon's attention sharpened faintly. Hermione turned to a marked page. Her voice wanted to shake. She did not let it. The great hall ceiling, bewitched by the founders and maintained through layers of atmospheric charm work, reflects the true sky above the castle while also permitting seasonal enchantments during feasts, holidays, and ceremonial gatherings. The dragon watched her. Ron stood very still. Hermione continued. During the winter term, it is traditional for the ceiling to show falling snow on the final evening feast before Christmas holidays, though the snow vanishes before reaching the tables. Harry's head lowered by an inch. Hermione kept reading, not about war, not about prophecy, not about duty, about useless things, important useless things. The staircases of Hogwarts are often accused by first-year students of moving at random, though this is not technically correct. The staircases respond to patterns of footfall, emotional urgency, and the castle's own preference for minor inconvenience. Ron let out the smallest breath of a laugh. The dragon's eye moved to him. Ron raised both hands. Sorry, that's just, minor inconvenience, sure. Tell that to my kneecaps. Hermione turned another page. Portraits are capable of travel between frames painted by the same artist or properly linked through charm lines. This has led to several historical disputes regarding privacy, gossip, and whether a portrait may be held legally responsible for repeating confidential information. The dragon blinked, once. Slowly, Hermione read on, her voice steadied with every sentence. She read about the kitchens beneath the great hall, where house elves moved through hidden corridors. She read about the suits of armor that sang badly during Christmas. She read about the lake freezing over in harsh winters. She read about first years getting lost near the charms corridor because a tapestry of Barnabas, the barmy, had been moved 3 feet to the left in 1892, and no one had updated the student guide. She read the details no dragon would value, no gold, no power, no ownership. Texture, human texture. Specific, useless, beautiful details. Harry's breathing changed. The smoke thinned. His claws loosened around the horde. Hermione risked looking up. The gold in his eyes had not faded, but something behind it had shifted, not enough. But something. Ron stepped forward. Remember the ceiling at Christmas? He asked. The dragon did not answer. Ron dug into his pocket. I've got proof that you're still an idiot, by the way. Hermione almost snapped at him. Then she saw the card. Ron held up the battered chocolate frog card between 2 fingers. Dumbledore smiled weakly from it, then pretended to be asleep, as portraits and cards often did when conversations became too emotionally complicated. The dragon's nostrils flared. Ron took another step. Found this in your old trunk? Well, technically Neville found it and gave it to me because he said I was better at being annoying. The dragon watched the card. Ron's voice wobbled, so he made it louder. You still have homework. The cave went silent. Even the dripping water seemed to pause. Hermione stared at him. Ron swallowed. What? He does. You can't defeat Voldemort and skip Charms revision. That's how society collapses. The dragon made a sound, low, dangerous. Then it happened again, not a growl, not quite, a broken rumble that might once have been laughter. Ron's face twisted between terror and hope. Yeah, there he is. The dragon's head lowered until it was almost level with Ron. One eye, golden and huge, stared at him. Ron did not move. "Harry," he said softly, "come back." For several seconds, nothing happened. Then the dragon looked down at the hoard, coins, cups, shields, stolen trinkets. Things, so many things. His claws flexed. Mine. Hermione saw the struggle move through his body like pain. The dragon wanted to keep. The boy wanted to return. The sickness did not vanish because of love. It was not that kind of curse. It had teeth in him. It had hours, hunger, treasure, and Voldemort's burned residue clinging to the inside of his throat. Harry's body shook. His wings unfurled, striking the cave walls. Stone cracked. Ron stumbled. Hermione stood fast, book clutched to her chest. "Harry James Potter," she said. The dragon's eyes snapped to her. "You are not the things you keep." Smoke poured from his mouth. "You are not the fire in your throat." The cave grew hotter. "You are not Voldemort's soul." The last words hurt him. She saw it, but she said them because they were true. "You are the boy who hated fame, broke rules badly, saved people anyway, and once copied my entire history of magic essay so obviously that I corrected your spelling before turning you in." Ron glanced at her. "You corrected him before turning him in." It was awful spelling. The dragon's mouth opened. A sound came out, not words. Pain. Then his body began to change. Hermione had seen the transformation before. This was worse. Because this time the dragon resisted itself. Scales pulled inward, then surged back. Wings folded, then snapped open. Bones shrank halfway and then twisted. Harry roared so loudly that dust rained from the ceiling and stones tumbled near the entrance. Outside, Aragorn moved. Gandalf caught his arm. Not yet. Inside, Ron stepped closer. Hermione shouted his name, but Ron ignored her. He reached out and placed his palm against the dragon's snout. The scales were hot enough that his skin reddened instantly. He did not pull away. "Come on," Ron whispered. "You're terrible at being scary when people know you." The dragon shuddered, then collapsed. The huge form folded inward with a sound like a house breaking in reverse. Wings vanished into Harry's back. The tail shortened. Horns dissolved. Scales sank beneath skin. The gold light dimmed, concentrated, narrowed. Harry hit the stone floor in human form and screamed. Ron caught him badly. They both went down. Hermione was there in the next breath, dropping the book and grabbing Harry's shoulders before his head struck the rock. His body burned under her hands. Not fever hot, furnace hot. He coughed. Blood hit the stone, then ash, then blood again. Ron's face went white. "Hermione?" "I know." She turned Harry onto his side before he choked. His back arched. A thin line of black smoke forced itself from his mouth. His hands clawed at nothing, fingers bending as if expecting talons to be there. "It hurts," Harry rasped. Those two words nearly destroyed her. Because they were so small, so human. "I know," Hermione whispered, though she did not. "Not really. I know." Harry coughed for nearly an hour. By the time it ended, the cave no longer smelled of gold and smoke. It smelled of blood, rain, and burned metal. Harry lay wrapped in Ron's cloak, shivering despite the heat coming off him. His eyes were open, fully gold now, not gold-ringed, gold. The green was gone. Hermione noticed first, then Ron. Harry noticed them noticing, his mouth twisted. "Bad?" Ron wiped at his face with his sleeve. "No." "Very stylish. Bit dramatic, but that's your brand now." Harry tried to smile. It barely formed. His lips parted, revealing canines too sharp and slightly too long. Ron saw. His joke died. Harry looked away. Hermione picked up Hogwarts, a history from the cave floor. One corner had burned. She brushed ash from the cover with shaking fingers. Harry watched the motion. "Read more," he whispered. Hermione's throat closed. Ron looked at her. So she sat beside Harry on the cold stone and read until his breathing steadied. Outside the cave, Aragorn stood with his sword still sheathed. When Hermione finally emerged, leaving Ron with Harry, the king looked at her and said nothing. That was mercy. Gandalf stood near the entrance, face shadowed by his hat. Faramir waited farther down the path. Hermione walked to him because she needed to do something other than shake. He came back. She said. Faramir nodded, for now. She almost snapped at him, then stopped. His face was not cruel, only honest. You managed stewardship in Gondor, Hermione said. Before Aragorn returned? Yes. How? Faramir looked toward the mist-covered hills, then he spoke quietly. Stewardship is ruling what is not yours. It teaches the hands to hold without closing into fists. My father forgot that. He loved Gondor so fiercely that he began to mistake possession for duty. A good steward must wake each morning and say, "This is mine to guard, not mine to own." If Harry can learn that of his fire, his body, and the fear others place upon him, he may endure a little longer. 6 sentences, no more. Hermione counted them because counting was still easier than crying. That sounds impossible, she said. Faramir's mouth softened. Most necessary things do. Recovery took 2 days. No one called it rest. Rest implied peace. This was repair. Harry remained in human form, though the word human now required kindness. His eyes stayed gold. His canines did not shorten. Dark scale patterns appeared and vanished along his forearms when he slept. Once at dawn, Hermione saw his shadow stretch across the wall with wings that his body did not have. She told no one, not even Ron. Especially not Harry. The hoard in the cave was removed while he slept. Not stolen, removed, sorted into piles. Some objects were returned to villages. Some were given to goblin channels for identification. Some were useless and went into sacks. The coins from Gringotts were sealed and sent back with an apology no one expected the goblins to accept gracefully. When Harry woke and saw the gold gone, the cave went dangerously hot. Ron sat beside him, eating an apple with exaggerated calm. "Yeah, we cleaned your room." Harry stared at the empty hollow where the hoard had been. His breathing changed. Ron pointed the apple core at him. "Don't start. It was mostly rubbish. You had a door handle." Harry's jaw tightened. "It was brass." "Exactly. Rubbish with confidence." For a moment, Hermione thought Harry might actually snarl. Then he closed his eyes. The heat faded by degrees. "Thank you," he said, as if each word had to be dragged past teeth. Ron nodded. "You're welcome. Also, your decorating taste is cursed." Harry's mouth twitched, small, but real. Later that day, Legolas came to the cave entrance with a bundle of arrows and no visible concern about sitting near a half-dragon boy who occasionally smoked in his sleep. Harry watched him warily. "You're not afraid?" Legolas looked amused. "I have known trees more temperamental than you." Ron, from the back of the cave, said, "That's actually devastating if you know elves." Harry looked at Legolas. "Are you here to watch me?" "Yes." Harry's eyes narrowed. Legolas sat on a stone, and to sit in silence. Elves are very skilled at making both seem polite. Harry stared at him, then, strangely, relaxed. They sat for nearly an hour without speaking. Hermione watched from outside with a book open in her lap, pretending not to study them. At last, Harry said, "Do dragons exist in your world still?" "Few," Legolas replied. "Fewer than songs suggest, more than comfort prefers. Are they all monsters?" "No." Harry looked at him. Legolas continued. "But neither are they merely large lizards with unfortunate reputations. They are memory, hunger, fire, and pride given scale. To meet one is to meet an appetite old enough to have opinions." Harry looked down at his hands. "Sounds right. You are not only that, I know." Legolas's gaze was steady. Knowing is not the same as remembering. Harry's fingers curled. "No." Legolas leaned back against the stone. "Elves remember too much. Dragons keep too much. Men die too quickly. Hobbits, I am told, solve this by eating often and worrying at sensible hours." Harry blinked. "Hobbits?" Ron perked up. "Wait, there are food people." Legolas smiled faintly, in a manner of speaking. For a little while, the cave felt less like a sick room and more like a strange camp before a terrible journey. Harry asked about forests in Middle-earth. Legolas asked about the Forbidden Forest. Ron explained Quidditch badly. Harry corrected him twice. Hermione cried quietly behind her book and pretended it was because of dust. The news arrived on the 3rd night. A Patronus came first, not a full-bodied one. Kingsley's lynx, faint and ragged, bounded through the cave entrance and dissolved near Gandalf's staff. His voice followed. Voldemort has withdrawn from Hogwarts. Repeat, withdrawn from Hogwarts, forces moving south. Malfoy Manor altered beyond recognition. Black stone towers, defensive wards visible from miles away. Nagini confirmed present, object matching gaunt rings sighted in Central Hall. Hogwarts foundation stones transported and built into lower structure. We believe all remaining anchors are at the manor. The Patronus vanished. No one moved. Harry sat upright slowly. Ron whispered, "That's good!" Hermione looked at the map spread across the cave floor. Good was not the word. Simple, perhaps. Horrifyingly simple. Voldemort had done what they needed and what they feared. He had gathered the remaining Horcruxes around himself, not because he was careless, because he understood the game had changed. Scattered anchors could be hunted. Gathered anchors could be defended. Malfoy Manor was no longer a house. It was bait, a fortress. A trap built around 3 pieces of Voldemort's soul and the man himself. Hermione placed 3 markers on the map: ring, Hogwarts anchor, Nagini. Then she placed a 4th, Voldemort. Harry looked at them. His face revealed nothing. Ron stared at the markers. 3 Horcruxes. Hermione nodded. 3 breaths. Harry's hand went to his throat. The motion was unconscious. Everyone saw it. Gandalf's voice was soft. No margin. Harry smiled faintly. It was not happy. Never had much of that. McGonagall arrived an hour later with Kingsley, Neville, Aragorn, Gimli, and the remaining leaders of the Resistance. The cave became a war room again, though no one liked using a dragon's den for planning, especially Harry. He stayed near the entrance in human form, wrapped in a dark cloak, gold eyes reflecting the firelight. He looked smaller than he had any right to look. McGonagall saw the eyes. Her face changed, only for a moment, then she lifted her chin. "Potter." Harry looked at her. "Professor?" She studied him. "You look dreadful," Ron muttered. Finally, some normal conversation. Harry's mouth twitched. McGonagall stepped closer. "I am furious with you." "I know." "No, you do not. I have prepared categories." Gimli looked impressed. "Categories?" McGonagall ignored him. "But they will wait until after you survive." Harry looked down. "That might be a long wait. Then I shall be patient out of spite." The line landed gently. Harry's shoulders eased. Aragorn took the map. The manor's outer defenses are not meant to repel an army indefinitely. They are meant to slow one. Kingsley nodded. "He wants us gathered. He wants Harry forced into a direct attack." "Then we must give him what he wants," Aragorn said, "but not how he wants it." They planned through the night. No one pretended the plan was safe. Gandalf and Aragorn would lead the ground assault. Order members, Aurors, Rangers, and anyone still able to stand. Their task was not victory. Their task was to force Voldemort's attention outward for 90 seconds. 90 seconds. Hermione wrote it down. It looked too small. In those 90 seconds, Harry would take dragon form, fly above the manor, breach the roof, and destroy the anchors in sequence. Ring first. Hogwarts anchor second. Nagini third. No deviation, no wasted fire. No attempt to burn Voldemort with forge fire. By the time the 3rd breath was spent, Voldemort would be mortal. Then someone had to kill him. No one said aloud that the someone would probably be Harry. No one had to. The argument came near dawn, not from Ron, from Harry. "I go alone." Ron closed his eyes. Hermione said, "No." Harry looked at her. "You can't be near this. We won't be in your path. You shouldn't be there at all. We are not discussing this as if you get to make every decision because you have wings." The gold in Harry's eyes sharpened. The cave warmed. Ron stood, careful. Harry's gaze flicked to him. Ron did not move. Hermione stepped closer. "You nearly didn't come back yesterday." "I did come back, because we came for you." Harry's jaw tightened. "That is why you shouldn't come again." "No," Hermione said. "That is why we have to." His hands curled into fists. For 1 second, the shadows behind him looked winged. "I could hurt you." "You could," Ron said. Harry flinched. Ron continued, voice quieter now. "You could also hurt yourself trying not to, so we'll stand where you can see us, not where you can crush us. That's the deal." Harry looked between them. "Deal?" "Yeah," Ron said. Friendship terms very binding. Goblins would hate the paperwork. Harry breathed out, almost a laugh, almost smoke. Hermione held his gaze. You are not going alone. Something in him gave way, not surrender, trust, a tired, painful kind. All right. McGonagall exhaled very quietly. Gandalf closed his eyes. Aragorn looked down at the map, giving Harry the dignity of not being watched too closely. Outside, the first pale light touched the highland rocks. The cave smelled faintly of smoke and rain. Harry looked at the 3 markers. Ring, Hogwarts, Nagini, 3 targets, 3 breaths. The arithmetic was perfect. That was what made it terrifying. Later, when the others were preparing to leave, Hermione returned to the book. Harry sat near the entrance, staring out at the valley. His profile looked almost human. Almost. She opened Hogwarts, a history to the marked page. Harry did not look at her, but he listened. She read about the great hall ceiling again, about the snow that vanished before touching the tables, about staircases that moved according to emotional urgency and the castle's preference for minor inconvenience. Ron sat nearby, turning the Dumbledore chocolate frog card between his fingers. Still have homework, he said softly. Harry closed his golden eyes. Yeah, the word was rough. But it was a word, human, remembered. Outside, the wind moved across the highlands. Far to the south, Voldemort waited in a black house made from another school's bones. 3 Horcruxes remained, 3 forge fires remained. And Harry Potter, no longer fully boy and not yet fully beast, stood at the edge of the final hunt with no margin left at all. Chapter 6. The Burning of the Black House. What if Harry was a dragon animagus? Malfoy Manor had stopped pretending to be a house. Once it had been all pale stone, cold gardens, iron gates, and old family pride polished until it shone. It had stood like a pure-blood memory, expensive, cruel, elegant, and convinced that history belonged to those who inherited it. Now it looked like a wound trying to become a castle. Black towers rose from the old roofline, jagged and wrong, as if the manor had grown teeth in its sleep. The windows were narrow slits of green light. The gardens had been burned away and replaced with trenches, wardstones, and circles of ash. Dark banners hung from the walls, not moving even when the wind crossed the grounds. At the center of it all, the manor's main hall glowed with sickly magic. Beneath it, hidden below black stone and old foundations, lay pieces of Hogwarts, not symbolic pieces, real ones, stones torn from corridors, broken steps from staircases, fragments of classroom walls, part of a statue that had once guarded a passage near the Transfiguration corridor. Voldemort had dragged them here like trophies and built them into the lower levels of the manor. He had not simply taken a school. He had tried to make its death useful. Hermione stared at the distant fortress from the ridge and felt something inside her go cold beyond fear. He made it ugly, Ron whispered beside her. That sounded small, childish. It was also exactly right. Voldemort had made Hogwarts ugly by forcing it to serve him. He had made Malfoy Manor ugly by giving it purpose beyond vanity. He had made war ugly by turning memory into architecture. Harry stood several paces ahead of them, wrapped in a dark cloak, gold eyes fixed on the black house. He had not spoken for nearly an hour. That frightened Hermione more than if he had shouted. Around them, the final assault force waited in broken silence. There were fewer of them than any plan deserved. Aurors in patched robes. Order members with tired faces. Students who had grown too old in a week. Rangers from a world that should never have known Voldemort's name. A dwarf adjusting the grip on his axe. An elf watching the wind. Gandalf in white, staff in hand, eyes on the sky. McGonagall standing like a blade in tartan and black. Kingsley with his wand low at his side. Neville, pale but steady, holding the sword of Gryffindor because no one else had asked him not to, and Aragorn. He stood at the front of the ground force, not shining, not grand, not like the kings in children's books. His cloak was travel-worn. His face was lined with exhaustion. His sword rested in his hand as if it had weight, history, and grief. He looked back once at the people behind him. 90 seconds, he said. No one answered. That was all the time they had to buy, not victory, not conquest, not even survival. 90 seconds for Harry to breach the manor, find 3 anchors, spend 3 breaths, and make Voldemort mortal. Ron leaned closer to Hermione. 90 seconds is nothing. Hermione's fingers tightened around her wand. No, it's everything. Harry turned at last. His eyes moved over the ridge. McGonagall, Kingsley, Neville, Gandalf, Aragorn, Hermione. Ron, he seemed to be memorizing positions, distances, faces, or trying to. Hermione hated that she could not tell the difference anymore. Ron stepped forward. Hey, Harry looked at him. Ron held up the battered Dumbledore chocolate frog card. It was ridiculous. It was perfect. Homework, Ron said. For a second, Harry's face did nothing. Then the corner of his mouth moved barely. After. Hermione nearly broke at the word. After. He still believed in an after. Or he was pretending for them. Either way, she loved him for it. McGonagall approached him. Potter. Harry straightened slightly. Professor. Her face was pale, but her voice did not shake. You will follow the plan. Yes. You will not improvise unless absolutely necessary. Harry glanced at Ron. Bad habit. Then resist it. Yes, Professor. She looked as if she wanted to say something else, something softer, something useless and human. Instead, she lifted her chin. I expect you to be late to your own recovery, as usual. Harry's gold eyes softened. I'll try not to damage too many roofs. McGonagall's mouth trembled. See that you don't. Gandalf came next. For a moment, the two stood facing each other, the old wizard in white and the boy who had become something older than his own world. Gandalf did not give a speech. He only said, Hold to your name. Harry swallowed. Harry James Potter. Yes. The wind moved over the ridge. Aragorn lifted his sword. Below, at the edge of the black grounds, the first Voldemort wards began to pulse. The manor had sensed them. The time for words ended. Harry walked away from the ridge. Ron took one step after him. Hermione caught his sleeve. Ron stopped. His jaw clenched. Harry reached the open ground behind a line of broken stones. He removed his cloak and folded it neatly. That was what almost destroyed Hermione, the neatness, as if he expected to need it later. Then he reached inward. The dragon answered. The transformation tore through him faster than before. That was bad. Hermione knew it immediately. The dragon no longer needed to be dragged from the human shape. It came eagerly, violently, like a storm breaking through a weak door. Bones lengthened. Scales flooded over skin. Wings unfurled in a blast of hot wind that threw dust across the ridge. Horns rose black against the gray sky. The gold in his eyes expanded until there was no trace of boy left visible from the outside. Within moments, Harry Potter was a dragon again. 200 feet of obsidian scale and mithril vein. A furnace with wings. The ground force began moving before the transformation finished. Aragorn raised his sword. For 90 seconds, he called, voice carrying across the ridge, we do not win, we stand. Kingship is often nothing grander than buying time for someone else to do the impossible. Then he ran downhill. The final battle began. Voldemort's outer defenses woke like a nest of serpents. Green fire erupted from the wardstones around the manor. Trenches filled with smoke. Inferi clawed out of the mud, their eyes empty, their hands reaching. Death Eaters appeared along the walls, masked and hooded, firing curses in bright, hateful lines. The ground force struck from 3 directions. McGonagall led the left flank, transfiguring the battlefield as she moved. Iron spikes became birds. Black chains became snakes that turned on their own masters. A broken siege ladder twisted into a cage around 3 Death Eaters before they understood what had happened. Kingsley held the center with the aurors, shields overlapping in bursts of blue and gold. Neville led a charge through the lower trench with the sword in one hand and his wand in the other. His face set not in confidence, but in refusal. Gimli laughed once as he hit the first line, not happily, like thunder had learned sarcasm. Legolas moved along the right ridge, arrows finding wand hands, knees, shoulders, disabling, not killing when he could avoid it, because Harry's war had already taken enough from boys who had not chosen the masks they wore. Gandalf walked forward into the smoke. Dementors descended from the manor towers. The old wizard lifted his staff. White light burst across the field. The Dementors recoiled, not from a Patronus, but from something stranger. A memory of mourning from before fear had a name. Above all of it, Harry climbed. He did not roar, not yet. The plan required silence for as long as possible. His wings beat once, twice, 3 times, carrying him above the battle line. Curses rose toward him, but the Death Eaters below were distracted by the assault. That was the point. 90 seconds, eyes outward, wands downward. The manor roof spread beneath him. Black tiles, green ward lines, iron spikes, a trap shaped like a target. Harry folded his wings and fell. The sky became speed. The first serious volley hit him halfway down, killing curses, cutting curses, bone-breaking curses. Spells Hermione did not know and never wanted to. Most shattered across his armored chest and shoulders. A few struck softer seams and left lines of pain bright enough to bend his flight. Harry did not turn. The roof rushed up. At the last instant, he opened his wings just enough to angle the dive. Then he hit Malfoy Manor. The black roof broke beneath him. Stone exploded inward. The sound was not a crash. It was a verdict. Harry tore through the upper levels into the central hall, claws smashing balconies, wings folding tight to avoid being trapped. Dust, glass, and green flame filled the air. Below him, Death Eaters scattered in terror. The hall had been prepared for him. Of course it had. At the center, on a black plinth beneath a chandelier of bone-white crystal, sat a ring, small, ugly, cracked, the gaunt ring. The resurrection stone, or what remained of it, set in metal that still smelled of old blood and family rot. Voldemort had placed it openly, bait. Harry knew it. The dragon knew it too. Bait was still meat. He lunged. Curses struck his face from both sides. One hit the ridge above his right eye and burst harmlessly. Another sliced the soft flesh beneath his jaw, drawing a hot line of blood. Harry snapped his head down, jaws closing over the plinth, the ring, and half the stone beneath it. He swallowed. The ring entered his gullet like a frozen star. The Horcrux inside it woke screaming. This soul fragment was older than the others. Darker. More patient. It carried not just Voldemort's arrogance, but his ancestry, his obsession with blood, his hunger to prove he came from something ancient and therefore deserved to rule. The dragon liked ancient things. The dragon wanted to keep it. For one terrifying second, Harry felt the ring settle near the furnace like treasure placed in a crown room. Mine. No, the count rose in him. 3 breaths, 3 targets, no margin. He breathed inward. Forge fire number 4 ignited. The hole lit from inside his throat. White-black flame wrapped around the ring. The metal resisted first, then the stone, then the soul. Voldemort's fragment tried to hide inside the idea of lineage, inside the claim of blood, inside the old lie that being descended from monsters made you less afraid of becoming one. Harry burned the lie with the ring. The plinth cracked. The chandelier shattered. A scream echoed through the manor walls and down into the foundations. Then ash rose in Harry's throat. 2 forge fires remained. 2 Horcruxes remained below. Far outside the broken hall, Voldemort felt the ring die. The entire manor answered. The walls pulsed. Green light turned red. Harry did not wait. He drove downward. The foundation hall was below the manor's old cellars, not built, excavated. A pit had been carved beneath Malfoy Manor and lined with stones from Hogwarts. Harry could smell them before he saw them. That was what nearly undid him. Hogwarts smelled different from other stone. Not to human senses, perhaps, but to the dragon, to the thing he had become. Every stone carried memory like heat, chalk dust, rain on windows, broom polish, ink, pumpkin juice, old spellwork, students laughing where they were not supposed to be, 1,000 footsteps. 1,000 years of children becoming themselves. Voldemort had mortared those memories into a black pit. At the center of the foundation hall stood a mass of fused stone. Hogwarts steps, Hogwarts walls, Hogwarts bones. And inside them, twisted through the ward core like a parasite, was a Horcrux. Not an object, a wound with an anchor in it. Harry landed hard in the lower hall, cracking the floor beneath his claws. The space was too narrow for his wings. He folded them tight and dragged his body forward, stone scraping against scale. Curses rained down from galleries above. He ignored them. The Hogwarts anchor pulsed. The Horcrux spoke without words. Castle, home, mine, not Voldemort's voice that would have been easy at used Hogwarts. It showed Harry the Great Hall restored if he kept it. Staircases moving, fires lit, beds warm, Hermione reading, Ron laughing, McGonagall pretending not to smile. A world where nothing had to be burned away. Keep this peace, it whispered. Keep the school. Keep home. Harry stopped. His claws dug into the floor. The dragon did not understand schools, but it understood lairs. It understood home as a place to guard. It understood stone that remembered him. And the boy wanted Hogwarts back, not smaller, not scarred, not lighter because something had been burned out of it. He wanted it whole. The anchor knew. It pressed into that want like a knife. Above him, a curse struck the old wing wound. Pain tore through the membrane. Harry roared and slammed into the wall, bringing down a balcony. Death Eaters fell back screaming. Dust filled the foundation hall. Still, he did not breathe. He hesitated. Outside, through broken stone and battle noise, a voice reached him, not clearly. Not magically, just loud. Ron, Harry, the name cut through the Horcrux's false Hogwarts. Harry, not dragon, not beast. Harry, Hermione's voice followed, sharper, desperate. It's not the castle, it's what he did to it. The Horcrux recoiled. Harry understood. Hogwarts was not the stone Voldemort had stolen. It was not the anchor, not the wound, not the thing whispering keep. Hogwarts was the people who had loved it, fought for it, rebuilt it, argued in corridors, got lost on staircases, read under blankets, cheated at chess and taught children to become more than what fear made of them. This stone was not home. It was a chain. Harry opened his jaws. The Death Eaters above realized what was happening and fired everything they had. Green light hit his cheek. A purple curse slashed the soft underside of his jaw. One spell struck the inside of his mouth as it opened. Pain exploded through his tongue and throat. The mithril lie. The inside was vulnerable. Harry nearly choked. For a moment, the furnace flickered. No, he forced his jaws wider. Forge fire number 5 ignited. This breath did not stay inside him. It could not. The Hogwarts anchor was not in his gullet. It was fused into stone, ward, foundation, and stolen memory. So Harry released the forge fire outward for the first and only time with full purpose. White-black flame poured from his throat and struck the fused Hogwarts stones. The sound was not a scream. It was a choir breaking. The foundation hall lit brighter than noon. The fire did not spread like ordinary flame. It moved through the anchor lines, through the stolen ward core, through the places Voldemort had stitched his soul into the idea of conquest. Stone cracked. Green light snapped. The Horcrux twisted, trying to dive deeper into the foundation, but forge fire followed it through meaning, not masonry. Harry held the breath. Longer, longer, his throat burned raw, his wounded mouth filled with blood and smoke. The manor shook. Above, the central hall split open. Outside, every ward around the Black House failed at once. The Hogwarts anchor burned. One forge fire remained. One Horcrux remained, Nagini. And then Malfoy Manor began to fall. The ground battle changed when the wards died. For 1 second, Voldemort's army lost its shape. Curses faltered. Inferi collapsed. Dementors fled upward in black tatters. The green flames around the trenches went out, leaving only smoke and mud. Aragorn saw the moment, so did McGonagall. Forward! She cried. The word struck the field harder than any spell. The resistance surged, not triumphantly, desperately. They had bought the 90 seconds. Now they had to survive the result. Beneath the manor, Harry clawed his way upward through collapsing stone. His wings scraped walls. His left wing barely responded. The curse wound from earlier had reopened, and something darker now burned along the membrane. He burst into the central hall through the floor. The hall had changed. The roof was open to the gray sky. Rain fell through dust. Broken balconies hung like snapped ribs. At the far end of the hall stood Voldemort. He had not run. That was his pride. Beside him, coiled around a cracked marble dais, was Nagini. The snake's body was thick, dark, and gleaming in the rain. Her head lifted as Harry emerged, tongue flicking toward him. Harry smelled the final Horcrux. Living flesh, venom, soul, fear hidden beneath obedience. Voldemort looked smaller than he had in the Great Hall, not weak, never that, but reduced by the destruction around him. The ring gone. The Hogwarts anchor gone. His hidden pieces burned one by one inside a creature he had never imagined. His red eyes fixed on Harry. You, one word, no speech, no performance, just hatred. Harry lowered his head, smoke poured from his mouth. The dragon wanted to charge. The boy knew better. Voldemort had prepared for this moment. The first curse struck Harry's left eye, not the killing curse. Something thinner, sharper. A spell designed not to break armor, but to seek softness. Harry jerked aside, but not enough. Pain burst across his face. Vision blurred on one side. He roared, stumbling, claws carving trenches through the ruined floor. Voldemort moved fast, too fast. He did not fight like a man facing a monster. He fought like a surgeon cutting open a known weakness. Curses targeted the soft flesh beneath Harry's jaw. The inside of the mouth when he opened it. The wing membrane. The eyes. The seams near the shoulder joints. Harry lunged. Voldemort vanished in a crack of apparition and reappeared behind a fallen pillar. A green curse struck Harry's wounded wing. The membrane ignited from within. Harry screamed. The wing collapsed. He crashed onto one side, shaking the hall grounded. The dragon was weakest on the ground. Thorin had warned him. Gandalf had mourned it. Hermione had written it down. Harry had known, knowing did not stop the pain. Voldemort stepped forward through rain and dust. His wand was steady. He aimed at Harry's open mouth. Harry snapped it shut just as the curse fired. Green light struck the outer jaw and shattered, but the force drove his head sideways into stone. Nagini moved, not toward Harry, around him, fast through rubble, aiming for the blind side. Harry tried to rise. His left wing dragged uselessly. His wounded throat burned. His vision on one side swam with red and gold light. Voldemort cast again. This time the killing curse struck Harry's left eye. The world became white pain. Harry's head slammed back. For one dreadful moment, everything stopped. Hermione saw it from the broken entrance to the hall. She had reached the manor with Ron, McGonagall, and Neville through smoke and falling stone. They arrived just in time to see green light hit Harry's face. Harry collapsed. Hermione screamed his name. Ron ran forward. McGonagall caught him with both arms and nearly fell, holding him back. "Ronald, no," he hit him. "Stay back." Harry did not move. Voldemort stared. Even he seemed unsure for half a heartbeat. Then Harry breathed not fire, breath. A broken, smoking inhale. His left eye was gone, destroyed before the curse could carry through into the brain. The armor around the skull had held. The soft eye had not. The mithril lie had saved him and maimed him in the same second. Harry rose, slowly, half-blind, grounded, dying by inches, but alive. Voldemort's face changed, not fear yet, calculation cracking. Nagini struck. She came from Harry's blind side, jaws open, aimed for the wounded throat. Ron shouted. Harry turned toward the sound, not the snake. That saved him. Nagini's strike hit the side of his jaw instead of the soft underthroat. Her fangs scraped scale. Harry's head snapped down. His jaws closed around her. Voldemort moved at once, not toward Nagini, away. For the first time he understood the geometry. Ring gone, castle gone, only the snake, only one piece left, and it was inside the dragon's mouth. No. That was Voldemort's final word, small, furious, almost disbelieving. Harry swallowed Nagini whole. The final Horcrux slid into his gullet alive, thrashing with venom and soul and terror. The dragon's instincts surged harder than ever before. Living treasure, final treasure. Keep. If he kept this one, the hunt would end, but the hoard would remain. He would have the last piece of Voldemort forever. No one could take it. No one could say the fire was spent. No one could make him empty. Keep. Harry's claws tore into the broken floor. His one remaining eye blazed gold. The sickness rose like a crown. For a moment, Hermione thought they had lost him. Then Ron's voice broke through the hall. "You still have homework." It was absurd. It was desperate. It was Ron. The dragon froze. Hermione stepped beside him, tears cutting through dust on her face. She opened the burned copy of Hogwarts, a history with shaking hands. She did not read loudly. There was no time. She only said, "The snow vanishes before it touches the tables." Harry's eye moved toward her, human texture, useless detail, home without ownership. Harry closed his jaws. His throat lit. Forge fire number 6 ignited, the last true breath. It turned inward with terrible force. Nagini writhed inside him. Voldemort's soul fragment tried to escape into living flesh, into venom, into Harry's wounds, into the residue already clinging to the dragon's gullet. It fought harder than all the others because it was the final door. Harry held it shut. The fire burned through snake, soul, and spell. Not with cruelty, with ending. Nagini's body went still inside him. The soul fragment screamed once, then vanished. 0 Horcruxes remained. 0 forge fires remained. The furnace went dark, not cold, never fully cold. But the ancient destructive fire seeded by Mount Doom was spent. The arithmetic completed itself. Voldemort stood in the ruined hall, mortal for the first time in decades. For 1 second he understood, not emotionally, not humbly, not with regret, only as fact. He had defended against wands, against prophecies, against death, against love. He had hidden pieces of himself in treasures, bloodlines, beasts, and conquered stone, and a dragon had gathered them. Harry moved. No fire remained, no spell, no wand. Only teeth, weight, and the last strength of a body ruined by purpose. Voldemort raised his wand. Harry crossed the hall in one broken lunge. The curse hit his shoulder and burst against scale. Then the dragon's jaws closed around the Dark Lord. There was no speech, no final duel, no flash of brother wands, no clever reversal, no grand philosophy. Voldemort died in the wreckage of the Black House because Harry Potter, half blind and out of fire, reached him first. The silence afterward was larger than the battle. Rain fell through the broken roof. Somewhere outside, a Death Eater screamed and surrendered. Somewhere else, stone collapsed into the lower holes. But in the central chamber, no one moved. Harry stood for 3 seconds. Then his legs failed. The dragon crashed onto the ruined floor. The impact shook dust from every broken arch. Hermione ran. Ron ran with her. McGonagall shouted something behind them, but neither stopped. They climbed over shattered stone and splintered black wood, slipping in rain and ash until they reached Harry's head. It was too large, too still. His left wing lay twisted and burned. His scales were cracked in a dozen places. Blood darkened the soft flesh beneath his jaw. One eye was gone. The other, molten gold, half open and unfocused, stared at nothing. Hermione pressed both hands against his snout. Harry, no response. Ron grabbed a ridge of scale like he could shake a dragon awake. "Mate, no, come on. You don't get to do this after I used my best line." Harry's eye moved, barely, toward Ron. Ron laughed once, broken and wild. "There, see, still annoying you." Hermione sobbed and pressed her forehead to the hot scale. Behind them, Gandalf entered the hall slowly. Aragorn came with him, blood on his sleeve, sword lowered. McGonagall stopped several feet away, her face folded around a grief she refused to release yet. "Can he change back?" Neville whispered from the doorway. No one answered. Harry tried. They all felt it. The dragon's body trembled. Scales shifted. The air bent with transformation magic, but the shape did not fully release. He had been too long in the beast, too wounded, too emptied of the fire that had made the change possible. The dragon collapsed inward only partway. His body shrank, but not to a boy's. Wings folded and shortened, but did not vanish. Scales receded from some places and remained in others. Talons became hands, but the fingers stayed dark-clawed at the tips. His long jaw shortened with a sound of agony, but not entirely. Horns sank back into black ridges along his skull. When it ended, Harry lay among the ruins in a half-form, roughly human-sized compared to the dragon, but not human. Scaled, winged, golden-eyed, broken, alive, Hermione pulled off her cloak and covered what she could of him, though the fabric barely mattered. Ron knelt beside his head. Harry's mouth opened. No words came, only smoke, not forge fire, just smoke, warm and thin. His one good eye moved between them. Hermione understood what he was asking. She nodded fiercely. It's done. Ron wiped his face with the back of his hand. You did it, all of them, 0 creepy soul bits left, very tidy work, honestly, except for the entire building. Harry's eye closed. For a terrifying moment, Hermione thought he had died. Then he breathed again, small, painful, alive. Outside, the battle ended in fragments. Some Death Eaters fled. Some surrendered. Some threw down masks and claimed they had never believed. The surviving Aurors took them anyway. The black towers of Malfoy Manor cracked and fell one by one. The stones stolen from Hogwarts lay split in the foundation below, no longer glowing, no longer chained. The rain washed ash from the broken floor. Gandalf stood over Harry and bowed his head, not in victory, in witness. Aragorn looked at the ruins where Voldemort had stood. He made himself impossible to kill, he said quietly. Gimli, limping in from the side hall, looked at Harry. No, the dwarf said. He made himself collectible. No one laughed, but Ron made a sound that might someday become one. McGonagall finally stepped forward. She knelt beside Harry with difficulty, as if her knees had aged 20 years during the battle. Her hand hovered over his scaled forehead. This time she touched him, very gently. Potter, she said, voice breaking only at the edge. You are still late. Harry's eye opened a fraction. No words, no smile, but something in his gaze answered. Hermione took the burned book from inside her cloak. The cover was bent. The pages were damp. Half the marked chapter was stained with ash. Her hands shook as she opened it. Ron looked at her. Now. Hermione nodded through tears. Now. So in the broken hall of Malfoy Manor, beneath a roof torn open by dragon wings and rain, while the last echoes of Voldemort's war died outside, Hermione Granger read aloud. She read about the Great Hall ceiling, about snow that vanished before touching the tables, about staircases that moved according to emotional urgency, about portraits that gossiped, about all the small, foolish, useless details that no Dark Lord had ever understood how to defend against. Harry listened. His golden eye stayed open. The dragon had no fire left, the boy had no voice left, but he listened. And for that night in the ruins of the Black House, that was enough. Chapter 7, The Cold Crown. What if Harry was a dragon Animagus? 6 months after Voldemort died, Hogwarts reopened without applause. That had been McGonagall's decision. The Ministry wanted speeches. Of course it did. The Ministry, having survived mostly by hiding, rebranding, denying, and then arriving late with polished shoes, wanted a ceremony. They wanted banners over the Great Hall. They wanted headlines. They wanted photographs of smiling students beneath repaired towers and a minister saying words like resilience, unity, and the triumph of light over darkness. McGonagall had read the proposal once. Then she had set it on fire in her office fireplace. Kingsley, who had become acting minister because no sane person wanted the job and no honest person could refuse it, wisely did not send a second copy. So Hogwarts reopened on a cold morning in November with no trumpets, no reporters, and no polished speech. The gates opened. Students walked in. That was all. It was enough. The castle stood under a pale sky, its repaired towers sharp against the clouds. The shattered roof above the 7th floor had been rebuilt. The great hall windows were whole again. The moving staircases moved, though 3 of them now did so with a stubborn limp, as if stone could develop opinions after trauma. The portraits had returned first. They always did. Some came back complaining. Some came back crying. Some returned with dramatic claims of having defended their frames against Death Eaters through morale alone. Nearly headless Nick reappeared near the entrance hall with his head tilted at a more severe angle than usual, and declared that the school felt draftier in the soul. No one laughed when he said it, because he was right. Hogwarts was restored, but not unchanged. The castle felt lighter now, not brighter, lighter, as if some deep, ancient weight had been burned from beneath its foundations along with Voldemort's anchor. Students noticed it even when they had no words for it. The corridors echoed differently. Certain old rooms were gone entirely, not destroyed, simply absent, as though the castle had decided it no longer wished to remember where they had been. The room of requirement still existed, but it opened less often, and when it did, the objects inside were fewer. The castle had survived, but survival had made it smaller. McGonagall walked the corridors every morning before breakfast. She told herself it was for inspection. It was not. She touched repaired stones. She paused near places where walls had once whispered. She stood outside the restored Transfiguration classroom and listened for the old creaks in the floorboards. Some were there. Some were not. Loss had a sound if one knew where to stand. On the first morning, a group of first-years gathered nervously beneath the enchanted ceiling of the great hall. Snow fell above them, vanishing before it reached the tables. A small boy with round cheeks stared up in wonder. "Is it real snow?" he whispered. A girl beside him said with great confidence, "No, stupid. It's magic." McGonagall heard from the staff table. For the first time in months, she almost smiled, almost. Then she looked at the empty place where Harry Potter should have been sitting, and the smile did not arrive. Harry did not attend the reopening. No one asked him to. That was kindness or cowardice. Hermione was never entirely sure which. He lived in the Highlands now, in the cave above the western ridge where the sickness had nearly claimed him. It had been cleaned, warded, warmed, and made as comfortable as a cave could be made without pretending it was a cottage. Harry had refused a cottage. At first, people thought it was because he feared hurting others. That was partly true, but Hermione came to understand there was another reason. A house had doors. Doors were made for people who entered and left. Harry did not quite belong to that shape of life anymore. The cave did not ask him to pretend. He was neither dragon nor boy now, not properly either. In size, he was closer to human than beast, though taller than he had been, with a thinness that did not look weak so much as unfinished. Black scales covered parts of his arms, shoulders, spine, and the left side of his face where the killing curse had taken his eye. His remaining eye was gold, steady and bright in the dark. The lost eye had not healed. Nothing could restore it. Hermione had tried every book she could find before admitting what healers had already told her. Some wounds did not close, they became geography. 2 folded wings rose from his back, smaller than the dragon's had been but still too large for chairs, beds, corridors, and most doorways. They were scarred, especially the left. The membrane there was twisted and pale where Voldemort's curse had burned it from within. His hands were almost human if one ignored the dark claws at the fingertips. His teeth were not. Speech had become difficult. Not impossible, just rare. The transformation had damaged his throat, and the last forge fire had taken whatever ease remained. When Harry forced words, they came rough, smoky, and painful. Sometimes he managed a sentence. More often, he answered with gestures, looks, or the small slate Hermione had charmed to resist heat. The first time Ron saw the slate, he had stared at it for a long moment. Then he had written on it, "Still better handwriting than yours." Harry had made a sound that was not quite laughter and not quite a growl. Ron had counted it as victory. The cave had 3 main spaces. The entrance chamber held a low fire that Harry did not need but liked watching. The middle chamber held shelves Hermione had installed herself, full of books, letters, and neatly labeled boxes of potions. The back chamber was where Harry slept, curled more than lying down, wings folded around himself like a cloak. There was no hoard, not of gold, not any more. At first, small things appeared. A silver spoon from Grimmauld Place, a broken watch, a smooth black stone, a brass button. Harry would not remember taking them. Hermione would find them arranged near his sleeping place in careful circles. The first time she removed them, he had woken in a panic so sharp the entire cave heated. Not rage, fear. The dragon's fear of emptiness. After that, Hermione changed tactics. She did not remove the objects. She replaced them, not with treasure, with memories. A Gryffindor scarf. A cracked chess knight from Ron's old set. A spare quill. A chocolate frog card. A photograph of the 3 of them from before everything had become too large. The dragon wanted things, so they gave him things that pointed back to people. It helped, not cured. Helped. That was the shape of life now. Nothing cured, Many things helped. Hermione visited every Friday. At first, she came with bags full of potions, books, medical notes, and the terrifying determination of someone trying to research a way backward. Harry tolerated it for 2 months. Then one evening, while rain hammered the cave mouth and the wind moved across the ridge, he took the slate and wrote, "Stop looking for the door." Hermione read the words 3 times. Harry watched her. His gold eye did not blink. "What does that mean?" she asked, though she knew. He took the slate back. The chalk scratched slowly. "There isn't one." Hermione's throat tightened. "You don't know that." Harry looked at her for a long moment. Then he tapped his chest once, his throat, his wings, his ruined eye, the cave around them. Then he wrote, "I know." Hermione had wanted to argue. She had arguments prepared, pages of them, theoretical avenues, ritual reversals, Animagus reconstruction, cross-world magical residue, Mount Doom's fire signature, goblin curse work, phoenix tears, basilisk venom counterbinding, old magic, new magic, desperate magic. Instead, she sat down on the stone floor and cried so hard she could not breathe properly. Harry looked alarmed, then guilty, then helpless. Finally, with great care, he reached one clawed hand toward her and rested it on the floor beside her knee, not touching, close enough. Hermione placed her hand over his. His skin was warm. His scales were warmer. That was the day she stopped trying to bring back the old Harry, not because she stopped loving him, because she loved him enough to stop turning him into a project. After that, Fridays changed. She still brought books, but fewer medical ones, more stories, more history, more nonsense. She read aloud because he liked it and because his own voice tired quickly. She read newspaper articles when they mattered, then mocked the writing when they deserved it. She read Hogwarts announcements, ministry reforms, letters from Luna, Quidditch scores, and once, at Ron's insistence, an aggressively stupid article claiming Harry had been sighted as a rare Hungarian shadowworm near Aberdeen. Harry had taken the slate and written, "Did they get my good side?" Hermione had laughed for nearly a minute, then cried for 5. Harry had pretended not to notice because friendship sometimes meant allowing someone dignity while they failed at dignity nearby. Ron visited monthly. He claimed it was because he was busy. That was partly true. George needed help at the shop. The Burrow needed rebuilding. The ministry wanted statements. The prophet wanted interviews. His family wanted him home and alive and eating properly. Life had become a swarm of obligations wearing familiar faces, but Hermione knew the deeper reason. The cave hurt Ron more, not because he loved Harry less, because he remembered the old shape more loudly. Ron had shared dormitories with Harry. Beds across the room, socks on the floor, late-night whispers, stolen food, Quidditch arguments. The easy ugliness of teenage friendship, where love did not need to announce itself because it was busy throwing pillows. Every visit forced him to see what war had done to the person who should have been beside him complaining about homework. So Ron came monthly. And each time he brought something absurd. A tin of biscuits shaped like broomsticks. A Chudley Cannon's scarf Harry refused to touch. A chessboard with dragon-proof pieces that still melted on the 3rd visit. A pile of bad Witch Weekly magazines because, according to Ron, if you're going to live in a cave like a mysterious legend, you should know what rubbish society is producing in your absence. Harry liked those visits. Hermione could tell. He always pretended not to. Ron always pretended not to notice. On one visit, Ron arrived with a wrapped parcel and an expression too casual to be trusted. Hermione narrowed her eyes. "What is that?" "Gift." "For whom?" Ron looked offended. "For our cave gremlin." Harry, sitting near the fire, lifted his slate. Rude, Ron pointed at him. "You live in a cave and hissed at a spoon last week. I stand by it." Harry's shoulders moved in silent laughter. Ron handed him the parcel. Inside was a wooden sign, polished badly, painted worse. The words read, "No hoarding unless emotionally significant." Hermione stared. "That is not how rules work." Ron shrugged. "It's how our rules work." Harry took the sign carefully. For a long time he only looked at it. Then he placed it near the back chamber entrance, not as a joke, as law. After that, the small memory objects stopped appearing in secret circles. He arranged them openly on a shelf. Gryffindor scarf, chess knight, chocolate frog card photo, sign, not a hoard, a life carefully limited. McGonagall moved nearby in January, not into the cave. Harry would have hated that. She took a small stone cottage 2 ridges away and told everyone she had retired from Hogwarts because the school needed new leadership and because she was old enough to stop explaining herself to committees. No one believed that was the whole reason. She appointed herself, without discussion, something between teacher and watchman. On Tuesdays, she visited with lesson plans. Harry had stared at her the first time she placed parchment in front of him. His slate had said, "Seriously?" McGonagall adjusted her spectacles. "Very," he wrote. "I ate Voldemort," she replied, "and yet your written analysis of Animagus theory remains underdeveloped." Hermione had to leave the cave to laugh. The lessons were not really lessons, not entirely, they were structure. McGonagall gave him essays because essays required linear thought. She gave him transfiguration theory because it forced him to think like a wizard, not a beast. She gave him small, wandless control exercises in human-sized magic, though the results were inconsistent and often strange. Harry could no longer cast with a wand in any meaningful way. The Elder Wand had been returned to Dumbledore's tomb after the war. Harry had not attended that either. He had only asked, through the slate, whether it was safe. McGonagall had answered, "Safer than most things we have buried." His own wand had survived somehow, cracked but intact. When Hermione brought it to him, he held it for almost an hour. Then he gave it back. He wrote, "Feels like someone else's hand." Hermione kept it in a box on the shelf, emotionally significant aloud. Sometimes, during McGonagall's lessons, Harry would lose focus and stare toward the cave mouth. The sky called to him, not as a place to escape, as a shape his body remembered. He could fly, but badly. His wings were damaged, smaller, and no longer supported true dragon mass because he no longer had it. Short glides from ridge to ridge were possible. Long flight was not. The first time he tried, he crashed into a snowdrift. Ron laughed so hard he fell over. Harry threw snow at him with one wing. McGonagall deducted imaginary points from both of them. For one afternoon, almost everything was normal. Almost. That word followed them everywhere. Gandalf left in December. The Veiltear had been shrinking for weeks. It hovered in a ruined stone circle north of the safe house, visible only at certain hours, its edges dimmer each time. Through it one could sometimes see mountains that did not belong to Britain, or a white city under a sun too golden for winter. The Fellowship gathered there on the final morning. Aragorn clasped Kingsley's arm and spoke with him about rebuilding laws from ruins. Gimli gave Neville a small axe and said it was for gardening problems of unusual size. Legolas gave Luna Lovegood a silver leaf from a tree no one in Britain had ever seen, and Luna accepted it as if such exchanges happened every Thursday. Faramir came to Harry's cave the night before they left. Hermione was there, but she stepped outside to give them privacy. Through the cave mouth, she saw Faramir sit opposite Harry near the fire. He did not seem afraid. Few men had better manners around monsters, Hermione thought. They did not speak much. Harry's voice was poor that day, and Faramir was not a man who filled silence simply because it existed. At the end, he handed Harry a folded letter. Harry looked at it, then at him. Faramir bowed his head, for when speech is too tiring and silence too crowded. Harry accepted it. The next morning, Gandalf came. He stood at the cave entrance with his staff in hand, white robes moving in the Highland wind. Harry came to meet him slowly, wings folded, one gold eye steady. For a long moment they faced each other, the old wizard who had helped make the dragon, the boy who had survived being made. "I am sorry," Gandalf said. "No decoration, no excuse." Harry held his gaze, then he lifted the slate I chose. Gandalf's face tightened. "Yes," Harry wrote again, "still hurts." Gandalf closed his eyes briefly. "I know." Harry studied him. Then, with visible effort, he spoke. The words were rough and low. "Go home." Gandalf opened his eyes. Harry's mouth twitched faintly. Before Ron asks if hobbits send food, Gandalf laughed. It was quiet, but real. Then he bowed, not to a beast, not to a weapon, but to Harry. At the stone circle, the company passed back through the tier one by one. Gimli grumbled about British weather until the last moment. Legolas looked once toward the highlands, as if listening for wings. Aragorn paused at the threshold. He turned back to Hermione, Ron, McGonagall, and Kingsley. "May your world remember the cost honestly," he said. Then he stepped through. Gandalf was last. Before he left, he looked toward the distant cave. Though Harry was not visible from the stone circle, Hermione knew he was watching from some high ridge. Gandalf lifted his staff once. A farewell. Then he passed into white light. The tier closed behind him. No thunder. No grand ceiling, only a soft folding of air. Two worlds became two again. Hermione stood in the cold for a long time after, Ron beside her. Neither spoke. Finally Ron said, "I never got to ask about second breakfast." Hermione laughed, then leaned into his shoulder and cried. Harry read Faramir's letter on the first day of the new year. Snow had fallen all night, thick and quiet, covering the ridges in white. Hermione arrived late because the path was half buried and found Harry near the cave mouth with the folded letter already open in his hands. He passed it to her. Not because he could not read it, because he wanted her to read it aloud, so she did. Faramir's handwriting was clean and spare. There was no long farewell inside, only a few lines. Harry Potter, stewardship is a long word for not dying inside while guarding what was never yours to own. Guard yourself in that manner if you can. Let others guard you when you cannot. Faramir. Hermione reached the end and stopped. Harry looked out at the snow. For a long while the cave held only the sound of winter wind. Then he took the slate. Good letter. Hermione nodded. Yes. He looked at the shelf, the sign, the scarf, the card, the chess knight, the wand box, the photograph. His eye lingered on the photo longest. In it, three younger people smiled in a world that had not yet asked for everything. Harry touched the edge of the frame with one claw, not possessive. Careful, then he wrote, "Not mine to own." Hermione swallowed. "No," he wrote again. "Mine to remember." She smiled through the ache. Yes. Outside, snow slid from a pine branch and vanished into white. By spring, the wizarding world had begun lying to itself, not entirely, just enough to live. Children needed schools. Shops needed customers. The ministry needed forms. People needed to say after the war, as if after was a clean place and not a field full of buried things. Stories spread. Some said Harry had died at Malfoy Manor. Some said he had gone traveling. Some said he had become a dragon and slept beneath Hogwarts. Some said he was secretly minister. Ron found that one personally offensive. "Minister," he said during an April visit, you'd last 3 hours before biting a committee." Harry wrote too. Hermione laughed. The truth was known only to those who needed it, not because Harry was shameful, because he was tired. And because the world had always wanted too much from him, it would want too much again if allowed. So the boy who lived became a rumor. The dragon of the Highlands became a warning, and Harry became something quieter than either. He learned the weather. He learned which wines made his damaged wing ache. He learned how to sleep without curling around objects. He learned that smoke could leave his throat without fire. At first, that frightened everyone. Then Hermione realized it was only warmth. No forge fire remained. The destructive reservoir was gone, spent exactly as the math required. 6 breaths for 6 anchors, nothing more. Harry could not burn Horcruxes, could not melt stone with ancient fire, could not become the terrible furnace that had ended Voldemort's immortality. Sometimes, when he was relaxed, a thin curl of smoke slipped from his mouth and warmed the air. That was all. The first time it happened while Ron was visiting, Ron held his hands out dramatically. "Useful. You're basically a fireplace with trauma." Harry stared at him, then wrote, "You are banned from poetry." "Good, didn't want to go near it." Hermione rolled her eyes. Harry's shoulders shook silently. The cave warmed, not dangerously, gently. In May, exactly 6 months after the burning of the Black House, Hermione came on a Friday evening with the old book. Not a medical book. Not a ministry report, not a newspaper, Hogwarts, a history, the same copy. Its cover was scorched. One corner was missing. Several pages had rain stains from Malfoy Manor. The marked section had been read so many times the spine now opened there naturally. Harry sat near the cave mouth, looking out over the highlands. The sunset had turned the snowless ridges bronze and purple. Below, the valley stretched quiet and empty. Far away, a stream caught the light like silver thread. He was larger in shadow than in body. That still happened. Hermione had stopped fearing it. Some parts of the dragon would always remain. She sat beside him on the folded blanket Ron had brought last month. It was orange, hideous, and allegedly cheerful. Harry had not allowed anyone to remove it. "Ron says he'll come next week," Hermione said. Harry lifted the slate. "Busy. George needed help with the shop. Also, apparently your warning sign inspired a product line." Harry turned his head slowly. Hermione tried not to smile. "I believe the first prototype says, 'No hoarding unless emotionally significant.'" Harry stared, then wrote, "I want royalties. I'll tell him." Harry looked back toward the valley. The wind moved softly through the cave. For a while, neither of them spoke. Then Hermione opened the book. Harry's eyes shifted toward it. She did not ask if he wanted her to read. They were past asking. She began. The great hall ceiling, bewitched by the founders and maintained through layers of atmospheric charm work, reflects the true sky above the castle while also permitting seasonal enchantments during feasts, holidays, and ceremonial gatherings. Harry listened. His breathing slowed. Hermione's voice settled into the familiar rhythm. "During the winter term, it is traditional for the ceiling to show falling snow on the final evening feast before Christmas holidays, though the snow vanishes before reaching the tables. Outside, spring wind moved across Highland Rock. No snow fell. But Harry's eyes softened as if he could see it anyway. Hermione turned the page. The staircases of Hogwarts are often accused by first-year students of moving at random, though this is not technically correct. The staircases respond to patterns of footfall, emotional urgency, and the castle's own preference for minor inconvenience. Harry's mouth curved faintly. It was not the smile he used to have. That one was gone with many other things. But it was his. Hermione kept reading. She read about portraits and gossip, about kitchens and hidden corridors, about armor that sang badly at Christmas, about the lake freezing in winter, about first years getting lost because maps had never been able to keep up with the castle's moods. She read until the light outside faded. She read until the cave fire burned low. She read until the gold of Harry's eye reflected only warmth, not hunger. At last, her voice grew tired. She closed the book. For a moment, the cave was completely still. Harry looked toward the darkening sky beyond the entrance. Then he exhaled. A thin curl of smoke drifted from his mouth. No fire, no weapon, no ancient doom, just warmth. It rose slowly into the cold air, silver-gray in the evening light, and vanished before it touched the stone ceiling. Hermione sat beside him. Harry listened to the quiet. Outside, the wizarding world went on, lighter than it had been, scarred where the dragonfire passed. And in a cave above the highlands, beneath a sky that belonged only to this world now, Harry Potter breathed warmth into the cold.